So Dave Chappelle hosted Saturday Night Live, and it was one heck of a monologue. Aside from the Kanye West commentary about Jewish people in Hollywood, which is being slammed, I guess, as anti-Semitic, whatever, Dave Chappelle, I couldn't believe it. He explained why people liked Donald Trump and why they still do. And it was such a good point that I think he may have just helped Donald Trump right before we hear he may be announcing his presidential run. It was incredible. Chappelle was like, here's a guy who comes out and says all those things you think they're doing, we are doing it, and they won't change it. There's more than that. We'll pull this up, but I heard what Dave Chappelle said, and I was like, I kind of want to vote for Trump now. Wow, I can't believe he said something like that. But of course, the media is pushing DeSantis versus Trump, which is probably way overblown. And then you've got the mail-in voting problem. So we'll take a look at what's going on. Maybe you noticed there's a story from Newsweek where they said they're going to, quote unquote, fix ballots in Colorado, and then Lauren Boebert will likely lose because many ballots were rejected. So once they cure those ballots, well, then the Democrat will take over. So we'll talk about that, plus a bunch of other stuff. Carrie Lake is being advised. So we hear, I don't trust the media, that she's not going to win this because the vote's closing and her lead is still fairly decent. But we will see. The battle is not over until everyone gives up, and I doubt Carrie Lake will give up. But we'll get into all that stuff. Before we do, my friends, head over to surfinginternetsafe.com to get Virtual Shield, a virtual private network service. A VPN helps keep you safe as you browse the web. It's a basic layer of security to stop creepy weirdos, government hackers, or just regular old hackers from stealing your stuff. If you go to surfinginternetsafe.com, they've got a special deal, $8.33 per month. That is 72% off. Really, really cool stuff. You get the full identity protection and VPN Plus included, Social Security protection and real-time 24/7 alerts, ad and malware blocking that runs continuously, dark web scanning behind the scenes. Ooh. Stream your favorite TV shows and movies with premium streaming, priority customer support, hide your IP address from anyone, anytime, fight censorship from your own home. This is interesting because if there's some kind of weird block that should not be there, the VPN can help bypass that stuff. It's a global network with military-grade encryption, and you get access to unlimited devices with, I believe that's with VPN Plus. So again, go to surfinginternetsafe.com. And as always, Virtual Shield, the first sponsor I've ever had back when I was getting like 10,000 views on YouTube, and they've stuck with us the whole time. So don't give your money to people who hate you. Support companies that have been with us. That's surfinginternetsafe.com. And of course, don't forget, head over to timcast.com, become a member to support our work directly. Click that Join Us button, sign up, and you will get access to our uncensored members-only shows. We put those up Monday through Thursday at 11 p.m. We're going to have one up for you tonight, which is going to be a whole lot of fun. So don't forget to also smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Take that URL, post it, paste it everywhere to help get the word out. Word of mouth helps defeat censorship as well. The reason I say our uncensored show is going to be extra fun is because joining us tonight is Mr. Dave Rubin.
Tim, I got to tell you, man, you've become a broadcasting professional.
How about that?
When I met you the first time, you were a little journalist. You were a guy with a camera, and you had a little attachment on your phone to make it prop up, and I had never seen that before. And you had a beanie. I was like, what's this guy doing?
Still do.
What's this guy doing? And now you're running like the biggest media empire this side of West Virginia.
A fraction of the size of the Daily Wire, but this side of West Virginia.
You're doing all right, man. By the way, thank you. I didn't know what we were doing today, but thank you for leaving this gender queer book in front of my microphone. This is extremely disturbing stuff.
Had to make sure you got to see it before we got started, so
you
you'd be a
will
little
be deleted
unused
from YouTube if I read any of that.
Yeah, man. I think we talked about this the last time I saw you was at your comedy show in LA, I think it was.
Yeah, that's 3 years ago. We think
that's crazy.
3.
Wow.
So we haven't seen each other for 3 freaking years. That's how bizarre the world has been.
Before that, I went on your show.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, pulled out a GoPro and filmed you and did a little interview with you.
Yeah.
And now, that was back when I was traveling around and doing more field work. And now we're totally off that basically. And it's just commentary and this sit down topical news show as it goes.
Just talking shit about people.
Yeah, that's right.
And seeing what happens.
Yep. So I think most people know who you are. You host the Rubin Report.
I guess I was early in on all this internet craziness, talking about stuff. It's
normally I tell people to explain who they are, but
I think most of the people watching this probably know me. I would assume they all like me. I've been told there's a few people online that don't like me, but
everybody has their audience. Everyone's got haters.
Yeah.
But I think the side that we occupy is very broad.
Yeah.
And even your haters watch. Whereas with the left, they won't even bother to listen to the context or try and get the information.
I've come to
For the
love
most
my
part.
haters actually because they drive a lot of clicks at the end of the day. You know what I mean? And I always think it's funny that there's a certain set of people that are so obsessed with everything that I say or any pause that I make, or if I slightly stammer over a word or a thought, or they'll edit things to say, to take the word not out or something like that. And I'm like, this is what you guys are doing all day for me? Like for me, like
it's good, right?
It's hilarious in a way. I don't do any of that stuff. I don't think you really do any of that too, right? Like there's a devoted group of people that hate me and you because we're thought of as sort of like FX lefties that are red-pilled, something like that. But do you do videos like that, like about whatever the version of us on the other side is? Like, I don't even really know who they are exactly. But like, what a waste of time.
There are prominent speakers who make videos about both of us nonstop all day. There's like 50 of them, and I never talk about them.
Yeah, never.
Because people, I was like, if we did a show about commentators, how is that relevant to the average American? How is it to the average person who's trying to?
So drivel. It's funny. So I don't even talk about the Young Turks, which people always used to ask me about the Young Turks because obviously that's where I started at the political level in LA or whatever. And I never comment about them, but they do all these videos about me all day long. Okay, fine. But then finally on election night, did you see that Cenk tweeted out that the power had gone out in their studio?
Yep.
And I screenshot it. I didn't even retweet him because I was like, I didn't want to tag him and create like a fight. But I just screenshot it and I just wrote LOL sent from Florida. And I was like, that's good enough. Like you vote in these morons and now you can't get power at your studio.
It's
you
funny.
Deserve it.
You sort of, I don't want to waste time with getting too much into the intros, but one last point is you clearly realized something was going on.
Yeah.
Your political views start changing. You say, I'm getting out. And now you look at the people who mocked you for it, their power shutting off in their studio. And you're there in Florida where it's
free and it's awesome. But that is part of the adventure. It's like, I realized something early on because I was so in it, right? I was in it with like the YouTube thing and the Young Turks and these lefties. And I saw all the weirdness around YouTube and all that shit. And
let's save it because we have a lot to talk about.
Let's save that. Yeah.
So
let's
of course,
get back to genderqueer.
That's right. Of course, Luke is here as well.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but everyone loves me.
Oh yeah,
because you're modest.
Especially in the comment section. I'm there with you guys, and today I'm wearing a shirt that says "Y'all went from sheep to lab rats," which makes for a perfect conversation for Thanksgiving, family gatherings. You could say a lot without really speaking. And from the testimony from the European Parliament, from the news report by NBC News, from everything that we saw in the last 2 years, it's absolutely true. If you agree, get the shirt on thebestpoliticalshirts.com because you do. That's why I'm here. Thanks for having me.
They say that gossip is one of the weakest forms of communication. Great minds talk about ideas, mediocre minds talk about things, weak minds talk about people. So I'm kind of with you guys on the whole don't slander and slap off about other people. But Dave, you created Locals and then sold it to Rumble, and I made a comment that you sold out.
Let's do it.
So I was talking about you.
No, we'll
get into it.
We'll save it. We'll get into it.
Oh, okay.
So that was me gossiping. I think there is a value to do it a little bit. As humans, we're community creatures, and we kind of live in a global community. So I tried the whole don't ever talk about anyone thing, and it's very isolating and psychotic. At some point, I think it's worth it.
No. Well, you can't do what we do and never talk about people. Like you can't, you know what I mean? You can talk about ideas to the best of your ability, and you can talk about what's going on in current events. And then every now and again, it's going to slip into something about people, sometimes who you don't know or haven't met or just need more context for or whatever. But just real quick on the vaccine thing, because I can see you're freaking out over there. I am not vaxxed, and I hope that's okay with you guys. I am original pure blood. Did not get the shot, and I don't like people who did get the shot.
Did you get COVID?
There you go. I did get COVID. My legs hurt for a couple days, and that was it.
You felt it in your legs.
We're not freaking out. We're with you.
Let's.
I want to introduce Kellen.
We got a story in that too, but we got Kellen here. Serge is out for the night.
Yeah, Serge is out. I'm Kellen. What's up? I'm ready to go.
All right. Well, let's get into the first story and talk politics. We got this from CNN. Opinion. Trump is adored by his followers. Dave Chappelle explained why. This is from Dean Obadala. I think you mentioned you knew him, Dave.
I used to do stand-up with him. Let's just leave it at that.
Okay. Well, I'll put it simply. Like, you have the story here, and it's amazing. Let me read a little bit. They say Chappelle pivoted about halfway through his monologue to the topic of Trump, remarking that, quote, "I'm watching the news now, and they're declaring the end of the Trump era." He then melded his acerbic comedy with the simple truth that everyone wishing Trump would disappear from from the political landscape needs to hear. Trump's base hasn't come close to abandoning him. I'm just being honest with you. I live in Ohio amongst the poor whites. A lot of you don't understand why Trump was so popular and very loved. He goes on to mention, Trump says, I know the system is rigged because I use it. The comedian then joked about how Trump accused during the debate with Hillary Clinton of not paying taxes and shot back, that makes me smart. Chappelle shared that for many working class Americans struggling to make ends meet, Trump's honesty in revealing the rich and powerful have been taking full advantage of a system designed for their benefit only enhanced his stature. It's amazing. And then he said, Chappelle pointed out that Trump looked at her and said, and you won't change the laws because because your friends benefit from it too. And when I heard Dave Chappelle say that, I'm like, that wasn't a joke. That wasn't anything other than powerful insight and a sales pitch. When I heard him say that, it reminded me of the 2016 election, what Trump was on about. And then I was just like, yeah, I kind of like that. He really made me, he really created a positive image of Trump. They say Trump's going to announce he's running tomorrow. And the weekend before, Chappelle comes out and says, this thing Trump did, which is really good, people respect. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, Chappelle's comments were very close to what Michael Moore said in 2016, specifically when it came to middle Americans and blue-collar workers going for Donald Trump because he represented the larger ideas of the American working class, which he was representatively standing up for. But then Dave Chappelle also made a joke about Donald Trump taking out his Illuminati card, sniffing some cocaine, and then telling everyone how they were playing the game, and then went inside the White House and then started playing the game, which I thought was also another important point there. But this could be one reason why he's being criticized as, quote, anti-Semitic and promoting anti-Semitism right now by the ADL, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. What he mentioned in his comedy skit, I think, was perfectly navigating a very sensitive topic. He hit everyone. He made everyone laugh about a very tough issue. And I think his representation of what happened to Kyrie Irving and Kanye West was also something important. A couple days ago on my members area, I was talking about how Dave Chappelle was on Oprah talking about how people were trying to drug him, so he had to escape the huge contract that he was under and literally went to Africa. This is also something very similar that happened to Kanye West. So there's something to really think about here when it comes to people who are anti-establishment, people who are breaking from the matrix, people who are coloring outside of the box and are now being heavily criticized and attacked.
Well, look, you color outside the box on anything and they're going to come for you. Remember, when Rogan had Dr. Malone on, what happened the week after? The entire mainstream media is saying Rogan is a racist, and they're releasing all these videos of him saying the N-word, not because he was actually racist, but because he was making fun of the user of the people that use the N-word. But that's what the system does. But I think actually what you said about the timing is most interesting, because it's like, wait a minute. We all saw that in 2016. I didn't support Trump in 2016. I did vote for him in 2020, and there's certainly a chance I'll vote for him again next time if that's where we're at. But it's interesting because Chappelle, he must have known that then. And yet in the same monologue, Chappelle says, I think he said twice, I'm a Democrat.
Yep.
So it's like, well, A, what still makes you a Democrat? I don't really get that. Or maybe that's his way of just throwing a little something so that he's not ousted immediately from the power structure, something like that. But also it's like, where were you for these last 6 years when Trump was doing all of those things that you're crediting him for? Like, that was day one stuff, right? Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like, all right, you got to the party, so
there's the
we'll take it.
There's the IQ bell curve thing of Trump, I think, where actually that's probably a bad way to put it, but when you start to really dig in deep into Trump's administration, you get a little soured by it, like John Bolton, and I think Bolton was because of Sheldon Adelson he was getting money from. When you actually look at the dark nitty gritty, you're like, my view of it is, the Trump administration, I said this before, Trump was the best president of our lives. That doesn't mean he was a good president. You know, whether you think he is or not is entirely up to you. My point was that name another president in my lifetime, in our lifetimes, who did a better job. The economy was great. He was getting our troops out of the Middle East. The foreign policy was generally improving. The Abraham Accords, peace with North Korea. And I'm like, that was all good enough for me in 2020 to say, I will vote for him, because I don't like voting against people.
Look, we had all-time lowest black unemployment, all-time lowest Latino unemployment. The moment for me that like really kind of started the shift, because it took a while, because everybody kind of has their own little journey to get there, for me was that State of the Union address when he's talking about lowest all-time black and Latino unemployment, and then they flash to the Congressional Black Caucus, and they're sitting there with scowls on their faces, and it's like, wait a minute, I thought if you guys want one thing, it might be for black people to have jobs. but they hated Trump more than that. They hated him more than that.
They hate you so much they will vote for John Fetterman. That's
People walked into, I say they walked into a booth. I guess nobody walks into a booth anymore. People go to the drop box or whatever they do. They mail in their 18 ballots to vote for Fetterman. How profoundly insane is that?
It's this simple.
Dr. Oz, poor guy. He had it all.
See, think about Nancy Pelosi. And I know everybody watching this, save for a small minority who for some reason are watching, do not like this woman, despise this woman. Imagine who you would be willing to support to get rid of her. Some bad people.
Right.
But, she's worse, right? You look at Fetterman, and they weren't looking at Dr. Oz like it was Dr. Oz. And that's probably why Trump thought Oz could win. They looked at Oz and they saw Trump. And so they just said, MAGA bad, Republican bad. If Trump's behind it, we vote for the other guy no matter what. So despite the fact that Fetterman, he's got serious brain damage.
Yeah.
They wanted it. But I will also stress too, because I pointed this out, and I think you probably agree, Republicans are never going to win again so long as universal mail-in voting is the rule of the land, because people who are disinterested from voting, who normally don't care, are having ballot harvesters knock on their door and say, did you fill that out? Come on, just fill it out.
Yep.
Then they do. Then they put it in the mailbox, or the ballot harvester collects it. And a person who normally wouldn't vote and has no interest in voting is now voting. And it's creating this ignorant voter base that votes just by letter.
Well, let's say most likely everyone watching this can agree that to some extent there's something shady going on there. So let's hit it from the other angle. The other angle would be, well, what's going on in Florida? The great free state where I live. In Florida, they cleaned it all up, and you got to show an ID. It was such a freaking pleasure to vote in Florida, to go there after I've lived in LA for the last
lines?
8. No, there weren't long lines, actually.
Amazing.
It was pretty functional. Went right in, school, smiley person standing outside, who walked right this way, used an actual pen, paper, actually put it in a little folding envelope, then walked it over, dropped it in the booth myself. Somebody else said thank you, checked an ID. It was like, wow, democracy actually can work. Some of this can have some value, as opposed to LA, where you just drive down Ventura Boulevard, you just yell out who your name, you yell it out to the crack dealer, and then they whisper it and they vote Newsom.
Long lines, Arizona, machines not working.
Yeah.
It's insane.
They still haven't figured out who won. That's absolutely nuts. It's absolutely crazy. Did they fail math?
Banana Republic shit. When literally 5 days later or whatever. No, 5 days. What am I saying? It's now we're 7 days out basically.
Well, again, one of the reasons why Florida got it right is because back in 2000, when the election wasn't counted on election night, people lost their ish. People were freaking out. Now it's slowly being normalized, which is absolutely crazy. But after that Gore-Bush debacle in Florida, the state of Florida invested a lot of money into voting. Ron DeSantis also specifically passed a law banning Zuckerbucks, what he called specifically money from Facebook, into Florida. And I think that also made a very big impact on the state, because Mark Zuckerberg spent hundreds of millions of dollars making sure that there was mail-in ballots, ballot harvesting, and all that money, all that financing wasn't available in Florida because Ron DeSantis stopped it. And I think that is what helped him win here when almost everyone else lost.
Tim, do you think that part of it is also that they want people to not have faith in the system? So
Definitely.
they love all of this, not just because they're doing it better than Republicans, but it's also to break the average person to just be like, none of it works. I don't care. Just give me some stuff and I'll stay home and that'll be that. Like something like that. Yeah.
No one ever said it was going to be easy. And I had someone super chat. They were like, Tim, you told me to get all my friends and go vote, and I did, and look what we got. And I'm like, you won. The projection right now, like the hard projection is 219 in the House. I mean, hey, maybe in a week the mail-in ballots will come and the Republicans will not have won. But
fortify. They got to
fortify. But if you didn't go tell your friends to vote, you'd be doing way, way worse.
Yeah.
It is difficult. And here's what the Democrats would love. And not the neocon establishment Republicans as well. They would love it if everyone listening just said, I give up.
Yeah.
Because then they don't got to worry anymore. They say, great, you've given up and now we own it and we'll own you forever.
Well, it's the ultimate black pill. It's why I try to do my show at the end. I always try to give some kind of positive thing at the end, because otherwise, what are we all doing, right? We're all talking about these issues. We're trying to, I mean, you're a great example of it because you moved a couple times to places to do the work that you wanted to do. Because, right, you didn't want to do it in Jersey. You didn't feel safe there anymore. I left
York
LA.
first.
New York, right. I mean,
Yeah, they murdered those 2 cops in front of my house.
There you go.
Yep.
So you did it. You took your foot vote. You took all the value that now you create here. And it's like people need to know that there is a place that they can go to that is still functional. Florida is that, as DeSantis called it on election night, that is the citadel right now. Texas has obviously a version of it, and Tennessee does, and a couple other places. But Florida is the home of the free right now.
But let me show you this tweet right here. We have this tweet from Andrew Kaczynski. You know him, you love him. He says, every single county moved further right in New York this year. If it comes down to just a few seats, New York Democrats and backlash to Democratic policies, rule in New York will have cost them the House. So Hochul wins. Zeldin loses. But how many votes did he lose by?
So he lost by about 350. And I told you right before we started that over the last, I think it's 3 years in New York, they've lost over 550,000 people. So if you just look at that math alone, Zeldin had people not moved, but you have to put in a zillion factors because COVID made everybody crazy and everything else. But it's like Zeldin could have won. The fact that he even got it this close and they flipped some of these seats is incredible. Like that guy is the all-star. DeSantis obviously is the starter all-star from this thing. But Zeldin is a close second.
Every single district in New York shifted left. I mean, just one more time. Every single county. Look at that.
Shifted right.
Shifted right.
Shifted right. Shifted from the left to the right.
It's all one thing when you look at it from space, man. Go far enough left and you end up on the right.
But you mentioned 550,000 people. I remember covering that story. Hundreds of thousands from Manhattan left. And who would be more likely to leave? People who want freedom. Where did they go? Across the United States, they went to Florida first, Texas second, and what do we see? Both of them became more red.
Yeah.
They and Georgia as well. I don't know about Georgia. People moved there, but Kemp defeated Abrams handily. DeSantis gets this double-digit win, and everyone says things like he's a good leader, he had good messaging, he cleaned up the voting the voting laws and rules. All true, but also consider all the political refugees who went there and wanted to vote for him. They moved there for him. He attracted these people. So there's some good and there's some bad. And the bad is, I was worried about this, that if people were going to be fleeing, it would make red areas redder. And then you leave New York, it becomes bluer.
In some respects, though, that's how this whole thing was set up to be, right? I mean, the idea of federalism, that the states will be extremely different experiments of democracy and you will go somewhere that is in line with your values. That's really how it was supposed to be. If New York... Putting even New York aside, because they tried at least. Cali it's just never coming back. But if that's what they want, I still have some friends that live there, but it's like, if that's what you want, I don't know what makes us united anymore. And unfortunately, the blue states will always encroach on the red states. Florida doesn't want anything from a blue state.
Right.
The blue states will want the tax money and all the resources of the functional red states. That's what I think the next frontier is.
But on the other hand, we have to understand Florida was a purple I think was a purple
Not
state.
anymore,
now is a red
not
state.
anymore,
But Ron DeSantis barely won his first time around.
30,000 votes.
So
it was a meth addict.
It was extremely close. And now this larger transition from New Yorkers to Florida, I think, has solidified Florida as a red state.
I think there's like a...
But it's not what they want. Sorry.
It's not what you want.
You said if that's what they want in California, but it's not. What's happening is with the way their election system works, the more they weaken it, now they want to allow non-citizens to vote.
Yeah.
A weakened election system means that for all of the selfish, disinterested voters, they negate the patriotic, hardworking American vote. So for every one of you out there who knows what's going on, wants energy policy fixed, wants economic policy fixed, doesn't want our borders open, your vote is negated by some guy who's playing Grand Theft Auto in his house when he hears a knock on the door, and someone walks up and says, couldn't help but notice that you got your mail today. See that? That's a ballot. Did you fill it out? And the guy says, I don't know, man. I don't care. Look, just fill it out. It'll take 10 seconds and then I'll leave. And the guy goes, okay, sure. What am I doing? Democrat? Okay, here you go, man. Well, that one person who didn't care canceled your vote.
Even kind of, but what's happening is they're voting for people to go do what you think they're going to do, and then they end up not doing it because they get bribed. Like this idea that we're in the best system and this is the way it's supposed to be, I think is really messing with people. People think that they're in this is it. We got there. I don't think we need, we only built a Republican, representative house because we needed to, because people couldn't represent themselves. They didn't have telephones. Now, we could, 700,000 people could vote yay or nay on a vote.
But we've talked about that. That's direct democracy, and that doesn't work.
Direct republicanism. We need a republic that's direct to the people so that we don't have these middlemen that are getting bought out by corporations.
Well, in essence,
I see what you're saying.
You want localism and you want federalism. So I agree with you, actually, that it's not that, look, first off, California has basically the most Republicans in the entire country just because of the size of the state. So it's not that all of these people want what they're getting there. I'll word it a little bit differently. I would say at some point, you got to just see what day it is, what time it is, and you got to get going. And to me, if you are a freedom-loving person who wants to own a business and feel safe and not have gender queer jammed down your kid's throat and everything else, get the hell out of Cali. It's as simple as that. It really is.
To address what Ian was saying, I think you make an interesting point, though. So let's look at this map right here of New York, right? These counties. They all shifted towards the Republican Party. If you didn't need to send your votes from, say, Utica to the Secretary of State or whatever to determine which individual would run the state, but instead you in Utica voted for what you wanted, then I guess the idea you're saying is that you're more likely to have your voice heard as an individual.
Every time it would be heard.
But it's not direct democracy. It's the district gets a vote, basically. So if there's a member of Congress representing a district, instead, the district does a vote per issue or something like that.
Yeah, so everyone in the district would vote yes or no, and then the district would be decided by that vote. That would go to the Senate, basically.
So Congress would be passing a bill, and then the vote would go out to everyone to see online, and then you'd vote in your district, and your district would get a vote based on the region. But here's the point.
Yeah.
There's some pros and there's cons in this concept. I mean, for one, it still ultimately comes down to ignorant people who don't care will end up voting.
Right.
But counterpoint, it would require the ballot harvesters to go out 7 times a week to try and win these votes, and they wouldn't be able to do that.
Well, that's one of the reasons that the ballot harvesting works, because they're going to blue cities. Blue cities, these are Democrats who want more control. They want more government in their lives. It's a lot harder to do it. You're going to go out to Utica and you're going to go to Cornell and wander around in the freezing cold and try to get all these people. People just aren't going to do it.
That's the Republican disadvantage.
But really think about that. We're staring at a freaking completely red map with one little tiny dot of blue that people probably can't even see if they're on their phone. And that is now governed by a Democrat. Does that really make sense?
Does
that really make
weird.
sense? Yeah. A Democrat who was one of the, I would say, the worst three, her, Newsom, and Whitmer, one of the worst three when it came to lockdowns and everything else. And the week before in the debate, she freaking said she would do it all again. And these people voted for her. So at some point, if you're a sane person there, you got to go, all right, maybe we got to wrap up shop.
So here's the challenge. You leave New York, and I've said get out of the cities, go to the middle of nowhere, get some chickens, right? You leave New York, which makes it, you're basically clearing all obstacles for these people to solidify these rules and make them crazier and worse. You leave, they will never lose again. You go to Florida, you protect Florida. Florida and Texas seem to be doing okay. But all the other states are now suffering and moving further and further towards authoritarianism.
No, you might have to cede some ground. I think we might be at that place.
All right, here's what we do. Everyone in Florida have a bunch of kids. Just start cranking them out, 10 babies per family. Then, 18 years, we send those kids out all across the country, start colonizing blue cities.
Listen, I just had 2 kids. They're never leaving. They're never leaving Florida. These kids are going to, and I'm being buried in Florida. I want to be clear about that. Oh, they're going to be homeschooled, or we'll figure out some pod thing. Although, that being said, Florida actually has pretty damn good schools because of Mr. DeSantis and his Don't Say Gay, and they booted all that stuff out of the schools. So there actually are pretty good public schools in Florida. I don't know what we'll do exactly, but I would be less concerned about that in Florida, which was the joke, because Florida has no
phones,
state income
no
tax.
TikTok.
Yeah.
No, they'll do that too.
And
Give them a chance.
DeSantis also got involved in local school board elections and actually gave out recommendations for candidates that he wanted to win, which made a big impact, which is affecting the schools down there.
And nobody's going to leave. Hannah Navarro from The View, she lives in Miami. She complains every day, and she's not going to get out.
Oh, you heard what she said about
Yeah.
DeSantis, right? That he gamed the system?
Game the system.
By arresting people committing fraud.
Yeah. She said, and voter IDs. She seems to think that black people can't get IDs. Yeah. I know a lot of black people. Every single one of them has
But when
an
she was
ID.
like, he gamed the system. He arrested people who committed fraud and then credited police. It's like, what do you think you're saying to people right now?
Yeah.
I really want to bump into her at a restaurant one day. She's on my short list of people that I would say something really crazy.
You might
to.
in Florida. All the politicians in Florida go to Florida. AOC loves Florida. She vacations down in Miami all the time.
She had her own people masked up in New York, and she went to that freaking drag bar in Miami Beach, and then they paraded her around like she was a queen. Yeah. Like, how vile.
Oh, man.
Another example of why I want to get rid of the House of Representatives. I can't stand these faux celebrities getting popularity contested into a bribery state. It's so annoying.
It's
You know, I
never
don't,
ending.
I don't,
It's
I
never
don't,
ending.
I don't know if I agree with the get rid of the House of Reps, but I do agree that just because we created this system, which has been one of the best so far, or if not the best, it doesn't mean we stop here. You know what I mean? Like there's always got to be a way to do things better, to improve things.
You're right, and I shouldn't say get rid of the House. I don't. That's not my intention. Is to transition to a better form of representation, personal
Yeah.
representation.
Well, what if you just completely handicap the federal government? Would that basically do it for you? Short of
I'm
California,
down.
because short
I'm
of
happy.
Yeah.
right, like that's
Music to my
what
ears.
we should all be going for. That way, as you said, you move to Florida, you move down here, I move to Florida. We're all making our choices, and then the only issue then, if the federal government is not that powerful, is that the blue states don't somehow encroach on the red states. It will not go the other way. So that's the one thing we have to watch out for.
The other,
Let me-
or
let me-
foreign governments. The feds kind of protect the states from foreign government interference. They're supposed to.
I want to show you guys this map real quick. This is the total vote count. I don't know if you guys knew this, but did you know that Republicans won the popular vote?
Yep.
52.2 million to 47.2 million. Yet somehow the Democrats end up staving off this red wave. Of the total votes, there was 101 million. So certainly not as much as 2020 or even as much as 2016. It's a midterm, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
But Republicans won the popular vote. Well, that's really incredible. So when they say that Trump is the problem, that Trump was dragging the Republicans down, it's absolutely not true. They did better than Democrats with all of the MAGA candidates in Trump support.
I think it's a little bit hard to say because we still don't, it's hard to quantify the amount of people that just hate him religiously, hate him as the ultimate evil, and just will not vote for because he's gotten involved. So it's a little hard to quantify that. But the point is, either way, Republicans did get more votes. And if again, look at that. That's sort of like looking at the New York map. That thing's pretty freaking red, and yet we're pretty much controlled by Democrats.
I love this because what they end up coming out and saying is it's because land doesn't vote.
Yeah.
Or they're like,
Yeah, yeah,
Republicans
that's what they
think
say.
land
Right.
votes. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let me
Land grows
explain.
food.
It certainly does. And there's two things to point out. First, the Republicans got more votes than you Democrats. That right there. So when you're like, land doesn't vote, then how do you justify losing the popular vote this time and celebrating your victory? Hypocrisy. No, look, I recognize that the way the district system is, it's not going to be fixed for 8 years when the new census comes in because of all the people who moved around and everything like that. But there's a reason why a state is red or a district is red. It's because land does grow food. The problem that I experienced when I went to California is because at a state level, they don't have a representative system. They have just you vote.
Yeah.
In Tulare County, they ran out of water. And the farmers were drilling thousands of feet into the earth for groundwater. The poor migrant workers, their homes ran dry, their wells stopped working because the cities voted, we get the water. The surface water was given to the big cities, well, because they need it more. But in reality, what happens is if you have one state and you say, okay, everybody, vote. Should we allow people to keep the water that's in their area, or should we have all the water transferred to the cities? Okay, everybody, now vote. Guess what? 2 wolves and a lamb deciding on what's for dinner. And the big city with its 13 million people in LA County or whatever said, we vote to get your water. They voted away water from these other places. That's why land has protections, because people live there and their resources need to be protected based on their interests.
Yeah, I mean, you just drive north from LA, drive from New York to San Francisco, and the amount of signs you see on all of the farmland. Hey, what are you guys doing to our water? Basically, the proof's right there.
LA
I'd-
to San Francisco. You said New York to San Francisco. LA to San Francisco.
LA to San Francisco.
You know what I'd love to see? You know, these people don't understand what happens when the Great Lakes get voted away from the Great Lakes region. There's a lot of people who live up there. There's a lot more people who don't. And a lot more people on the West Coast who are dealing with water crises. And they want that fresh water, and they don't care how they get it. So let's put it up to a vote. Chicago, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, and then see how long the Great Lakes last when Arizona says, don't know about your problem, don't care about your problem, we thirsty. Because there's already been issues going back 10, 20 years where Western states who are in drought say they have a right to the Great Lakes, which are an American resource. And one of the only things that's stopping them from actually getting it is Canada, Ontario, which is part of the Great Lakes Coalition. This is why I'm like, hey, there's a reason why Illinois has rights over their resources and you can't vote them away from them because it would destroy it. But if you don't live there, why would you care? You know, you want to strip the resource for yourself. It would be a disaster if we did everything through direct democracy. The Democrats want it when when in 2020, when they, or in 2016, or in when they have the popular vote, but not the presidential election. But they don't say anything about it now when the Republicans have the popular vote, but not the majority. The strong majority win.
It just seems obvious to me. We're just going to have places that function and places that don't, and they're going to keep going. And the places, and then they'll purge all their people, as you're saying, right? So think about how many. It's not just that 500,000 people left New York. It's the type of people that leave. It's people that have the resources to leave, that are functioning, that are looking at the numbers and going, boy, it just doesn't make sense here. The fact that I'm saving money by living in Florida now is crazy to me. I didn't move because of taxes. I was willing to pay it. LA was nice. I had a nice operation there. But the fact that now I'm saving all this money too is crazy. I would have paid that money to get in. And now I'm going to push DeSantis to go. Florida.
I wasn't willing to pay that money, especially in New York City, paying city tax, state tax, federal tax.
You paid it until you got out, right? I mean, that's the point.
Yeah.
And now you go, holy cow, I'm in Florida and it's better, and I'm saving the money too. And how is it that Florida has roads? Isn't that bizarre? Florida has roads despite no income tax. Florida has better schools despite
property tax.
No income tax. No, but the property tax, yes, they do have high property taxes, but it's certainly not making up for what they're losing in income tax at the end of the year, where they just take 10% of your money or whatever it might be.
So Florida declare independence, and then
I don't want to.
The Great Republic of Florida.
I don't want to drop anything today. The day before Trump announces.
I'm thinking about what do you do when there's one big lake that a bunch of states are pooling from? You want to vote locally, because no reason Nebraska should be able to vote away Great Lakes water. That makes no sense. But at the same time, where unification of states, there's no reason that Nebraska should not have access to the state water. So we're kind of in a...
I mean, the bigger problem actually is that we're in a massive culture war, as you guys know. These people live in another planet than us. There are people that want to be locked down. There are people who wanted to be injected and force other people to be injected, and at the same time say, my body, my choice. We are living in completely separate worlds, and how you put those people together mentally, sort of spiritually and mentally to live in a country, but then physically do it too, it may just be too big of a problem.
We got to mention the Young Turks. Have you seen?
Oh,
have you seen? But this, I don't comment on the Young Turks or other leftist commenters as any kind of drama or anything like that. I think there's a really interesting political point to be observed in Cenk Uyghur's tweets and the production path he's taking. You notice that he interviewed Matt Gaetz.
Oh, well, I know. Did it happen? Because didn't the lights go out?
Yeah. Well, they got him back on.
Oh, they got him.
But at the very least, he announced he would be interviewing Matt Gaetz, and people attacked him.
I'm sure that went well.
He came out against defund the police, which is a stark contrast from his initial position in 2020 supporting defund the police.
Who, Cenk?
Cenk.
Yeah, but he'll take any position. It's like they'll
but
ruin
that's the point.
everything.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Look, he was going where the popular context was, right? The popular position. In 2020, the narrative was defund the police. He was all on board. I'm not going to drag him for changing his opinion. I'll just say outright, thank you, Cenk, for adopting the appropriate position. Again, I think there's police reforms we absolutely do need. I'm not the biggest fan of law enforcement, but that outright just be like, get rid of cops is nuts. Now he's coming out with Anna, and they're saying things like, we shouldn't do this. There are rumors about why that is, I guess.
Wait, shouldn't do what?
Get rid of the police. Defund them.
Oh, so they're both saying it now. Yeah,
they're both saying it's a crazy proposition. You shouldn't do it. And that says something. It says something about the shift in politics that's occurring right now. And... I'll put it this way. When you did that, why I left the left thing, PragerU was massive.
Yeah.
They started coming after you saying, oh, he's faking it. He's a grifter and all that stuff. And then we mentioned this early on in the show. Here you are in Florida in your studio, ever successful. And the Young Turks' power went out and they had to complain about how the mayor has failed them. And it's amazing. If they saw what you saw, or at the very least they did, but if they accepted that it was true and were willing to say what is true, they would not be in a place where their power is going out. Now they're changing their opinions, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have no need to really talk about them, but I would say that I swear to you with every fiber of my being that all I did was do what I thought the right thing was along the way and then make the choices according. So I started talking to people that were different than me, right? Like every day they'd be saying Ben Shapiro and Larry Elder and Dennis Prager and Glenn Beck, they're racist and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, all right, well, let me talk to these guys and see what happens. And then I start talking to them and I go, boy, well, I guess I do disagree with them on some stuff. And I still have absolutely have disagreements with them on a bunch of different things. but they're nice, they're generous of spirit, they're kind, they want to live in a country with people that are different than them. And then I just kept going down that road. And then you know this too, because you did the same thing. You go down that road long enough, and then you're like, well, wait a minute. Now I want my life to fit with that. So I don't want to just have a set of political ideas. I want to live those political ideas. So for me, that was fighting as freaking hard as I could in Cali for the recall. Recall was a disaster. I campaigned with Larry Elder. You know, I got audited by the state 3 days after the recall.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is what happens in Cali. That's what they do. And that was the day. I had wanted to leave for about a year, but I was really trying. You know, the riots had gone right by my house, so I actually moved because I was like, if I move up the hill, maybe I'll be a little safer. But whatever.
I think.
And then I got the hell out, and now it's working because I followed the true path. I really believe that.
I think there's similarities and a bit of differences between how we sort of approached it. For me, I'd put it like I grew up in Chicago, and there's no Republican Party. So the only thing you know is Democrats, and you hate them. As a young person growing up, it was anarcho-punk, far left, skateboarding, etc. And the Democrats were evil, and we didn't really know much about Republicans. My friends, there's no Republicans. This just doesn't happen. And then you go out in the suburbs, and you're like, there was no. When I grew up, I had no negative thoughts about Republicans because they were non-existent. Mm-hmm. It did not impact, for the most part, anything going on because it's super majority Democrat across the board. So when I get older, I end up meeting a bunch of people out in the suburbs outside of the city who are Republican, and I have no ill will or ill thoughts toward them because they did not play a factor in urban Chicago living. And then I start hearing their opinions, and I'm like, at this point, I'm eating chicken dinner with my friend's family who are conservative, and I don't know anything, and I'm like, oh. And so then I start shifting from this young urban, skateboarding, far lefty activist into more of like a moderate liberal position where I'm like, okay, I totally understand what these people are saying. Never actually talked to them about it. And then as I get older, what do you see? You see the media's lying. They lie more. They lie more. They lie more. They lie more. And then what ends up happening is it's not so much that people decide to become conservative, but that conservative became a much bigger tent. Mm-hmm. So I go to the Deplorable in 2017, and two people are there. They're like, Tim, we're big fans. And I was like, really? I was like, I didn't know I had a bunch of Trump supporting fans. Like, no, we're Occupy. We were big Bernie bros, but now that it's Trump, saw the same thing in Anaheim.
That red pill's a beautiful thing, man.
But it wasn't so much that these people were, they were liberal hippies.
Yeah.
But Bernie Sanders was their choice. And with no Bernie, it's certainly not going to be Hillary Clinton. Trump was the other guy who was talking about fixing our borders and bringing jobs back and protecting unions. So he was the guy. So people end up voting for him, not because they're far right, but because he was closer to their values as a populist. And then, of course, the weird, insane cult left accuses anybody who opposes them of being right wing. So now all of a sudden, you and I are conservative, I guess. I mean, you may have actually gotten more conservative.
Yeah, well, first off, I'm not, by no stretch am I a traditional conservative by the way anyone understands the word conservative. I mean, I wrote a book. My first book was a complete defense of classical liberalism. And, if you went through everything in my book, it's all the stuff that Bill Maher would agree with. I just don't think it can stand on its own anymore. So I do think we do need a new alliance, and we're doing it right now, of sort of ex-libs and conservatives and libertarians and ANCAPs and all of these people. It's basically we all have to save the country, and then we'll deal with our problems after. I think that's basically where we're at.
Regarding is Trump the guy, this is kind of what we talked about at the beginning of the segment. What happens is, when you try and start your car while it's already going, and it just, like Trump was the spark. Trying to spark the machine right now is not the move.
Let's talk about this, though. I have this tweet from Interactive Polls 2022. This is interesting. Iowa, DeSantis up 11, Trump down 15. New Hampshire, DeSantis 52 to Trump's 37. Florida, DeSantis 56 to Trump's 30. Georgia, DeSantis 55 to Trump's 35. Are they lying to once again get rid of Trump, or is Ron DeSantis the new star?
Let's try it this way. What would you say the negatives on DeSantis are? Because we can all do negatives on Trump all day long. And we can all do the positives on DeSantis very easily, right? It's pretty much everything. So what would you say the negatives of DeSantis are?
He passed anti-free speech legislation.
The BDS
in
stuff.
Florida, the BDS stuff. I think that's pretty important.
Okay.
What can you explain that?
I'm not that well read on it specifically, so I wouldn't want to talk outside of my expertise, to be honest with you.
It was, boycott, divest, sanction Israel.
Yeah.
He came out in favor of not allowing that. I think it had to do with universities. But again,
Well, not allowing it as a state actor.
Right.
All right, so it sounds like we don't fully understand what it is, but all right, let's.
And that's a fair point.
So
but I'm not even coming out as a principal negative for DeSantis, mostly because it's not something I know enough about to criticize him on. Admittedly, we definitely want to make sure we check into something like that because
sure, if he was infringing on any free person's speech, then I would have a problem with it.
But
the government is allowed to tell government employees what they're allowed to do, something like that. So I would need to know
this
more
was
about this
based in
specific
university and schools, specifically if a school would support or allow someone to criticize or boycott Israel, he would punish the school and take away their funding.
But I think it had to do with
and Donald Trump also had similar points of views and viewpoints that he also supported as well. So it's a Trump DeSantis issue that they stood behind.
I'll put it this way. I think we are all too weakly versed on the issue specifically, but I do think it's important.
But let's even say it was a pretty bad thing. So so that's one.
And to entertain the possibility that there are things we don't like about him that we're not well versed on, I think is a fair point. However, my view of DeSantis is, to be honest, I can't think of a negative. However, when you compare DeSantis to Trump in the event that they go up against, when they're on the stage, Trump is an imposing figure of grandeur who can, the way Milo put it is that when he gets his mojo back, he dominates the stage. He commands, he pushes everyone out, he shuts them down. Now, that is not a policy or a practical advantage. It is a political advantage.
Well, right. So what's interesting about that, so I actually agree with you on that, but he didn't really dominate Biden in the debates. And isn't that bizarre? Yeah. Now knowing the degradation of Biden and how bad he is, and it was obvious he was bad at the time, but he didn't really crush him in those debates. So for some reason, Trump seems to be better when there's multiple people on stage and there's a fray, right? And he can then just sort of hit everybody. But the one-on-one thing was not his thing. But also, if at the end of the day, the biggest weakness is that, yes, is Trump more of a, I'm going to get in the ring with you and say all of the horrible things and dig up all of the evil shit and all of that. To me, I don't know that most people see that as a positive anymore. I think people would actually look at it and be like, wait a minute, Trump, what you're trying to do here is take out the guy who has done absolutely everything right, using just all of the worst tactics. I just don't know that would fly anymore.
I like what you said earlier when we were downstairs in the green room. You said 4D chess by mail. It's the longest game of 4D chess.
Well, that's everything with him is 4D chess. And it's like, okay, guys, are we going to ever, does the game ever end here?
I know a couple days ago I tweeted, oh no, the 4D chess analogies are back online. And I'm just like, I'm so sick of it.
I said 12D. That Trump is so advanced in his chess, he surpassed M theory.
Yeah.
One extra dimension.
You do throw out a tweet every now and again where I have to read it like 6 times. And then I'm like, all right, forget this. I don't know which way he's going on this one. That was one of them. I was like, what is going on here? Is it 12D now? Like, where are we going?
But Trump also came out a few days ago and says that he has dirt on DeSantis that his wife doesn't even know that he's going to be releasing to the general public. He said this on Fox News.
But that's what I'm saying. Even if it's true, right? Whatever it is, he cheated on his wife and he did blow off a hooker's ass and like whatever it is.
Normal political behavior.
First off, Trump's done an awful lot of bad stuff. And I just don't think if you're willing to do that now to the guy that's getting everything done, right? It's like, I just don't think that's what Americans want anymore. I think there is a long leash on our personal lives and that we've all done stuff. Trump proved it, right? Trump proved you can sleep with hookers and you can grab them by the pussy and you can do all that stuff and we'll still vote for you. So if his move is, well, DeSantis has done kind of all the policy, right? So I can't get him on that, but I'm going to dig up something to derail him. I think it's going to have more blowback than
it has right now, especially with these numbers that Tim is showing. But also, I would question the numbers because the numbers in the polls have been wrong a lot. But the conversation, in my opinion, should be the anti-establishment versus McConnell. But it's not. It's the anti-establishment versus the anti-establishment wing of the party kind of having a civil war within each other, destroying each other rather than, of course, building and growing and, of course, fighting the bigger fights out there, fighting themselves and essentially eliminating and destroying any potential of a populist surge that could be there.
Well, to that point, I mean, we don't even know if DeSantis is going to run. I mean, the guy loves Florida. Like, I honestly, I know him fairly well now, and I've done a bunch of things with him. Like, the guy freaking loves the state of Florida. He is born and bred there. He loves it. Look what he's done there. Like, maybe in part of his head, he's like, hey, I'm 44 years old. I got this beautiful young family. Like, I'm riding high right now. Maybe my life is to just fortify the place that I love and do great things there. Like, we don't know what his plans are.
But when he was asked directly, he gave a perfect political answer. not answering the question,
You're talking
avoiding
about
it.
you're talking about the one at
during
the debate.
during the debate as governor, which made it seem exactly like he's going to be running, like any politician would.
So let me give you some insider context on that. I was actually at the debate, and right before the cameras started, they announced to the crowd that was in the room, they said the candidates have agreed and signed a document saying that they will not ask each other questions. So when DeSantis just stood there, it was because he was honoring what they signed. Charlie Crist has no morals and or anything else. So Charlie Crist knew exactly what he was doing. That's not to say DeSantis shouldn't have had a better response.
He should have just said no.
Well, he should have. Well, or he could have said, "Hey, Charlie, we actually just signed something that said we're not going to do that. Do you have any morals? Do you have any?"
We talked about it when it happened. We did the math on it. There's no upside to doing anything other than saying no.
Right.
If he said, are you going to run for president, or what he said was, are you going to commit to finishing out your term as governor? DeSantis could have went, yes, I do. Thanks, Charlie. Have a nice day.
And just end it. Yeah.
Because if in the event in the future things change, he can say something like, I know I vowed to be here for the state of Florida, but I decided I can be. As the president of the United States, I can do more for Florida and for the rest of this country, and I will make sure that Florida stays true, stays with my heart. And I will always be there for you.
I think that advice probably would have been better than he sort of did just freeze in the moment, but he was trying to honor the agreement that they had just signed, and that's the problem when you play with one guy that has rules.
You know what Trump would have done?
What would Trump have done?
If he was asked, are you going to honor your commitment to be governor? Trump would have been like, I thought we agreed we weren't going to ask each other questions. When did you stop beating your wife, Charlie?
Yeah, exactly.
He would have done something like that.
And look, that would have worked.
Laughing
that would have worked in the debate context. So
Right.
your point basically is that even if DeSantis has everything right, and let's just say minimal downside, it's like he might get just crushed in the theater of the thing.
That is, but
it is possible. It is possible.
Imagine, it's really crazy. I was watching, we're playing music videos downstairs in the green room. We have that voice activated TV that you didn't like.
Yeah, what are you doing, man?
Thank you, Dave. Yeah. I've been screaming about this. I was like, the CIA's listening every single day.
Yeah.
When I poop.
You, Tim Pool, of all people, you're talking to your Google television? What?
It's one TV in the whole house that I don't know.
One
where it came
TV in
from.
the room that 20 of you were standing and coming up with your plans to take over the game.
He had Alexas.
right
He had
here.
Alexas before. I was like, what are you doing?
Is there one over here?
Alexa, stop.
Okay.
They just activated
Anyway,
Alexa, tell the CIA off.
When we play the music videos, these political ads would pop up where they're just lying, and it's the craziest lies I've ever heard. And I'm just thinking to myself, how do they get away with saying things that are so? Look, I get it. You can have your opinion in politics, and it's hard. You've got Times v. Sullivan defamation precedent stuff. But when you come outright and be like, my opponent said X and he didn't, it's just kind of a crazy thought. I'm just like, you know what I want to see? Just look, Republicans, if you're going to win right now, you can do two things. You can play the game of lies, or you can offer $15,000 to everybody who votes for you like Joe Biden did, basically. But I'm imagining you go up on stage and play the game. Are you going to stay and commit to being governor? When did you stop beating your wife? When did you stop touching your children? You want to play games? Let's ask. I didn't say he did. I asked him when he stopped. That's the level of politics, right? And people will immediately believe it, even though you didn't say he did. You can say, when did you stop stealing from the local grocery store?
So in a way, you're making an anti-Trump argument, I think, because your argument basically is he could open. Maybe he sort of did this, and it needed to happen the first time, but he might open up the gates of hell here, right? Like if it gets to the two of them, and it's like DeSantis is winning on policy, and he feels fresher, and it's right, and there's a track record, but Trump is willing to do the craziest shit known to man, which I think we would all agree he would do. And again, I voted for the guy, and right. So that says something about humanity, I suppose.
It does.
Yeah,
and it's
something very dark.
Ben Shapiro, he says, facts don't care about your feelings. Quite assuredly he does. And he gets 100,000+ retweets on Twitter. He pins it. And all of the conservatives smugly pat each other on the back in their victory of how smart they are. In reality, but they're not wrong. They're not wrong. But I say this rather derisively because feelings don't care about your facts. And you can come out and say, well, if Joe Biden were to shut down the Keystone Pipeline, it would cause speculative drive, meaning the investors and the traders are going to realize supply won't meet demand in the coming years because the pipeline was shut down, and thus prices will increase. So they invest now, causing an early price increase. Yeah. And the average person goes, huh? And then Joe Biden comes out and goes, look at here, man, I'm going to give you $10,000, put it in your pocket. Come on, man. And they go, well, $10,000 sounds pretty good. I'll vote for him. Keep it simple, make it understandable. Donald Trump gets on a debate stage with Ron DeSantis, and Ron says, in the great state of Florida, we kept our businesses open. We saw our economy improve. Unemployment went down. And Trump's going to go, well, I think you're ugly. And everyone's going to go, woo, and start clapping and cheering.
I know, and I think personally, I'm just past that part, and that may be where we're at. Like, I think we need enough. How about it something like this? I think we just need more adults in the room. I think too many of us have just let go of that part of ourselves in a way, did not want to confront all of the scary, mean things out there, and maybe we just need a little more of Jordan Peterson, like stand up straight with your shoulders back, and just not be part of the slow descent to hell.
I think that's true. I'm wondering if anyone could get into the presidency and not get assassinated, acting like Kennedy. Be like, the CIA, I'm uncovering it all. They know where the guy lives. Like, so is it more of a local adulthood that you're trying to create?
Well, I think DeSantis could. Like, I don't want any of these guys to get assassinated, even the ones I don't like. But, I think that there is room for a sane, competent person. I think if we had a sane, competent person as president, and we do not have a sane, competent person right now in Joe Biden, if we had someone who people believed he believed what he was saying and was roughly honest and things kind of worked, I think people would let go of so much of the other shit happening in society right now. But right now, we know, it's what you just said. We know everything is a lie everywhere, constantly. Everything that they say is misinformation, usually is truth. All the good guys are the bad guys. The bad guys are the good guys. So people are willing to do anything in a situation like that. And I think that's what's so refreshing about Florida. It's like,
we got breaking news. Katie Hobbs has won Arizona, reports Decision Desk, that they have flipped the Republican state to Democrat as of 8:50 p.m. with 98% reporting. Kari Lake was still down and unable to win. There were not enough remaining votes, so they're calling it.
What do you think Kari's going to do? I don't think she's going to take this line down.
She better not. Yeah. I think she's going to file some lawsuits. They absolutely should. She has standing here, and she has to move very, very quickly on this one. Look, if the people of Arizona legally, respectfully voted for Katie Hobbs, so be it. Yep. So be it. Yep. But in today's day and age, with the way this country is going, Kari Lake absolutely should not. And in order to solve the problem of 2020 and now of 2022 with ballot harvesting and universal mail-in voting, the long lines, the adjudication, the broken machines, you need standing. And that standing just happened right now. Kari Lake negatively impacted by fire lawsuits now. And it's entirely possible the state of Arizona is going to have judges who just say, no, thank you, have a nice day, as they did in 2020. But this is the way it works. So now begins the legal battle, which I think should happen. And I think there's two things to say about Arizona. One, universal mail-in voting, as I've described ad nauseum.
Yep.
Mom says, come on, kids, we're going out to dinner. Her 18, 19-year-old kids who live at home because the economy's in the gutter. And then she says, before we go out to dinner, fill out your ballots. And those kids go, Mom, I don't care about this. And she says, just fill it out and we'll go to Olive Garden. Unlimited breadsticks. So they do. That greatly helps Democrats. Republicans don't have that same ballot harvesting game. The bigger issue with Democrats doing that, and then Republicans going in on election day, and this is partly Trump's fault, the machines were busted. Many of the machines weren't working. Videos popping up of them rejecting ballots. Ballots were the ink wasn't properly laid, so the machine was having trouble scanning it. Then they had to put them in and adjudicate it. Some people were leaving because the lines were too long, disenfranchising Republican voters, and probably, I would argue, enough. That is a problem that must be adjudicated. It must be solved in the courts. Otherwise, this problem will never be solved. If there's one thing Kari Lake can do, even if she doesn't become governor, she can stop the broken process so the next time around this doesn't happen.
I need to confirm Katie Hobbs is in charge of the election in Arizona.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she did not recuse herself, obviously.
And neither did Brian Kemp in 2018.
Yeah.
This is a huge deal that someone is in charge of an election they won.
And it was in 2018 with Brian Kemp. And he's the Republican. Same thing. He was he was in charge of the elections. The Democrats cried foul. He ended up winning, and they claimed he disenfranchised voters to win.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
No. And Stacey Abrams then spent 4 years screaming that she was basically the governor. What's also interesting
Yes,
about Hobbs is that Hobbes refused to debate Kari Lake. So when you talk about how Fetterman, had obviously has some level of brain damage or whatever the stroke did to him, on top of all the bad ideas and everything else. So Democrats can put up candidates that barely can speak, Fetterman and Biden, and they can also now put up candidates who literally will not debate the other person. This is a huge problem. It's a function problem, but it's a problem. It's like, remember that? But what was it, about a month ago when she said, "Well, we're busy with fundraisers, so I don't think I'm going to have time for a debate." Well, then that seems disqualifying to me.
I think, I was talking about this the day after the election. I wake up and I see all these Republicans like, how could this have happened? This is Trump's fault. And, I'm like, I don't understand. Why is everybody so mad? The Republicans won. Like the projections were 224 in the House. Now it's 219. Mm-hmm. Maybe in a week I'll be like, well, I guess they didn't win because more ballots came in and they cured them or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're saying Lauren Boebert might lose now. But as long as the Republicans take the House, that's it. By one vote, they change the speaker, Pelosi's fired, and then they can start subpoenas and all that stuff. And fingers crossed, I think they're projecting like 98% chance that's what's going to happen now at this point. And I'm like, what more could Republicans have wanted? If you got the Senate, then you get Rand Paul on the.
You want the Senate, yeah.
You get Rand Paul on the health committee. You can ask Fauci questions. He's already done that, so they're not going to pass laws. There's no veto-proof majority. Biden wouldn't allow it. I think there's two silver linings here. With Fetterman winning, you're now going to have endless memes about how insane the Democrats are for electing this guy. They're going to try and keep him out of the press to a great degree.
Yeah.
And also it sort of absolves Republicans of any responsibility for the downturn that happens. So as bad as it's been over the past couple of years, and it's not going to improve, already they're talking about the economy is expected to get worse. There's going to be a major economic crisis next year. The Republicans can be like, hey, y'all voted Democrat. We barely got the majority by plus one seats. So, don't look at us. Come 2024, there's an opportunity if they fix the universal mail-in.
Right, that's the thing. That's what I was going to say. It still comes down to that because things are pretty shitty now. We're in a recession, although they don't call it. They changed the definition of recession, so it doesn't quite count. The supply chain stuff. Just try to order something from Crate and Barrel, see how long it takes. Try to buy a window, right? Like literally anything. So there are a million things on top of the fact. Does anyone in this room not think that Joe Biden is mentally compromised? Or anyone watching this?
That's putting it lightly.
I was trying to be nice. You said you didn't want to get booted off YouTube tonight.
You're being very nice to Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Compromise.
But the point is, we all know there's something wrong with the president. We all know that none of this is working. As I said, that there's just lies everywhere, and we just keep going with it.
Well, we don't.
Well, no, right.
The problem is the mail-in voting.
The machine or whatever you want to say.
So when did you realize Joe Biden was not all with it? Was it Batacalf care, Nexnel Rescent, Trinidad Shabbat pressure, or was it
Your pronunciations are pretty solid on those things because
I
not
worked
easy words to intentionally.
Trinidad Shabbat pressure.
Yeah,
I sat and listened to that to try and really get. Oh, and now he's got Relaland.
Yeah.
You saw that one, right?
That was just a couple of days ago.
Yeah, Relaland.
Rule of the land, he's trying to say.
Perhaps. Yeah. I'm not here to translate Biden
True
into
international
English.
He's got
something.
2 words. America is back. Like everything with this
made
guy.
in America. I got 2 words.
Oh, that's what it was. Made in America.
This matters. You hear him say that a lot, and this matters.
But
Yeah.
what we just witnessed, I don't see Republicans winning ever again. I talked about this specifically in my earlier video today. Now, you could criticize Donald Trump since his main issue for this midterm was talking about the 2020 election. You could criticize him from doing fundraisers for Masters and receiving $99 out of $100 and giving only $1 to Masters. That was, that was outpaid for by his opponent, $80 million to $12 million. You could criticize him on that, but when you have the ballot harvesting, when you have the mail-in ballots, additionally, when you have big tech censorship, when you have yellow bellies and neoconservatives in the Republican Party, I don't see them winning ever again in the near future. What else could help them win? They have no institutional power to change any of this. They won't change anything, and even if they did, I wouldn't even have any, optimism that they would.
So I think you're making my earlier argument, which is sort of you strengthen the red states and you bring in all the good people from the blue states.
Yeah.
You let
Brain drain them.
You let the blue states crumble under the weight of their own bullshit, and you strengthen. You bring all of the productive people. You bring all of the productive companies. You hire based on skill instead of equity. You do all of it right, and then you save certain places, and then you just kind of go, man, it was beautiful in the 80s and the 90s, but we couldn't hold on to it.
That's a good argument because even like 20 brilliant people can completely transform a state.
Of course.
Like you don't need 20 of them.
Look what's happening in Miami right now. They took all of the worthwhile talent from Silicon Valley. They didn't take all the social justice warriors. They took the main people from Silicon Valley. They brought them into Miami. Suarez is doing an incredible job. He literally, I mean, it was the tweet, right? His tweet was, "How can I help?" And he basically brought an entire industry there. And Miami is exploding as opposed to imploding, which is what's happening in Silicon
Well, we chose West Virginia. You know, I like
solid, great.
Yeah, and we've actually we've moved employees to come out to the area. We're expanding the operation. We're starting a couple new businesses, and we're going to continue to expand our West Virginia operation. The cities here are very small, but it's surrounded by. It's really interesting. We're 3 hours from Pittsburgh. We're 3 hours from Philadelphia. We're an hour from DC, an hour from Baltimore. We're 2.5 hours from Richmond. We have all these major urban centers all around us, but we're in a red state with a lot more freedom. It's not perfect. West Virginia's got issues, but we're going to fix them. We're going to fix them. There's a big opportunity here in the land being cheap. There's airports nearby. They have infrastructure. Central West Virginia is another story, but I think we can do a lot of good here. And I came down here because a friend recommended coming down here, and now I see great opportunity. And I've been looking at the local representatives and the congressional reps, and they're based, they're like Ron Paul type politicians. And I'm like, this is a good opportunity. I look at Florida and it's incredible, but that weather, man.
That's what you said to me before.
Tough.
I don't know what
Miami.
you're talking about. The weather is freaking awesome.
I love the weather.
I live in Miami. I was there all summer. Yes, it's humid. It is. And
they have a statue to the guy who invented air conditioning.
Yes, there's a thing called an air conditioner, and it conditions the air. And when you're inside, it's
respect
cool.
to that guy.
It's the beanie.
Yeah, no, great
Brilliant
guy.
invention.
We're going to see a
You guys are
Timcast
running AC
transformation.
in here right now. It's like 20
lived in
degrees
Miami.
outside, and you got AC going on in here right now. So
That was not my fault. So someone turned the AC on. I have no idea why. It's 40 degrees outside.
Tim's going to go through a transformation where he removes the beanie and goes to Florida. And
See,
he can finally
I
handle the heat.
lived in Miami.
Oh, wait a minute.
But were you
This
wearing
is
a beanie?
issue with you. That's
No.
what this
Yeah,
is.
7 degrees.
This is,
I
it's a
lived in
beanie.
Miami.
Yeah.
And the issue is when there's 2 months out of the year you can skate, and it's January and February.
I'm telling you, I just was in Florida this morning in Miami. It was about 72, absolutely beautiful. The iguanas are
Okay,
out.
fine.
The frogs
November,
are-
December, January,
No,
February.
this is a beanie issue with you. It is. You don't want to be the guy in the sweaty beanie. Oh, there's the sweaty beanie
That's
guy.
not
'cause
true
it's
because I'm
August. Yeah.
always the sweaty beanie guy.
No, but you're
That-
obviously sweating a lot less here. You don't want to be August sweaty beanie Tim and people
have
wandering around.
you experienced a Chicago summer, my friend?
I've been to Chicago in the summer. I've been to Wrigley in the summer.
It is absolutely not the issue because I actually use the beanies as sweat rags and I strain them out as I'm skating. And I'm not exaggerating. Anybody who watches me skate knows that. It's
black then because you always wear black and you feel like you'd be very out of place there. It's very hip. Neon
if
colors.
you
We
watched the
love
Castle
neon.
a lot of sunlight,
vlog,
too.
Yeah.
you'd see me wearing a light blue helmet and a white shirt while I'm skating.
Oh, so it is going to happen, you're telling me. Because
No.
You've got a sweat rag on your head. You've got your neon colored clothes.
It always looks slow when you're
Getting
watching
ready.
a transformation up
Yeah,
close.
this is very
Getting ready. No, Florida is expensive. That's the real issue.
It is
We-
expensive.
we looked-
They have to work on that.
We looked at I looked at Florida,
Yeah.
and it's expensive. And West Virginia was way more land, way cheaper, way more freedom. We can shoot guns.
Yeah.
Florida's definitely got places you can do it.
You
but
could go down to Homestead. That's where
That's where I lived.
Yeah. Oh, is that right? I mean,
So-
there's land and there's guns, and that's where I go shooting. And
I
yeah,
lived
it's awesome.
just north of Homestead, and man, what was the street number? I don't know. The Redlands.
Yeah, Redlands. Yeah.
Yeah. I lived over there for a year. We had a 5-acre property. We had chickens, and it's beautiful during the thunderstorms, man. It's really, really amazing. The thunderstorms roll in 5 times a week.
Yeah.
And then we're just sitting watching the trees.
So now you're telling me how great the weather is.
So many
You
coconuts.
see what we did here, Tim Pool?
We had so many coconuts. It was insane how many coconuts we had. We had too many coconuts.
So you have coconuts. You have the storms that you're happy about.
I'll tell you, the weather is not really that relevant compared to the good laws. Especially, I talked to everybody here. I said, if Ron DeSantis really gets this law passed on social media protections, we relocate in an instant.
Yeah.
In an instant.
listen, I don't want to speak out of turn here. I just know they're working on a million things. They're working on ESG stuff. Like, they are doing everything we're asking. So for all of these people out there, as I tweeted this morning, if you think that Ron DeSantis is part of the machine and he's just one of the generic ones and he's just a Romney or something like that, it's like, man, he's done everything you've asked. He's crushing in elections. Like, there will never be somebody good enough for you if that's your take on him.
That's the crazy thing. You tweeted something that I thought was really good. You said Ron DeSantis is doing everything we're asking for and he's winning, and people are accusing him like this is
being the establishment.
Yeah, this proves that he's bad.
It proves right because people have been so beaten into submission that when the good thing happens, they think it must be transitory, something like that. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be if we then go and start building the proper institutions, which is exactly what he did. He cleaned up voting, knowing that he's not going to be around forever.
I'm still skeptical of DeSantis, especially with him not being able to pass constitutional carry in Florida. But at the same time,
Well, they just got a supermajority now.
which if he does, I mean, all out respects if he does push this through. But he does go against the trans agenda. He shipped illegal migrants to Martha's Vineyard. He's fighting fiercely against the ESG social credit score. And how can you call him establishment?
No.
It's just crazy. And then Florida was one of the few states that survived the whole weight of all the lockdowns, of all the restrictions. They were the number one state that was attacked for allegedly killing people by allowing them to be free, and they stood up against it, and he stood up against Fauci more than anyone else.
AOC went to vacation in Florida with no mask.
He got to change his wardrobe. It's the suit makes people think he's establishment. Being in the hot Florida sun in a suit.
Do you think it's maybe that a certain
just
set of
won.
people just use the phrase establishment to mean just sort of anything that's like somewhat normal? You know
Well,
what I mean?
he's got people like Ken Griffin,
Yeah.
who's come out supporting him and
Ken
offering
Griffin was the money guy.
Citadel
What's the-
guy,
yeah.
establishment funding. But my attitude is,
I mean, who did Trump have him funding? Like, who's
Sheldon
funding
Adelson?
Trump? Exactly.
but
Like,
my
those are
attitude
some-
is this: look, just because someone when they went after, I think it was Rubio, they said you're getting money from the NRA, they own you, and he said,
Oh, right. That
I
famous
don't.
moment.
Yeah, he's like, I don't get money from them because I do things for them. I get money from them because I'm doing things already, and they want those things to happen.
Yeah.
That's the thing. DeSantis is winning. I think these people are like, well, it's cult, communists, critical race theory, or DeSantis. I'll take DeSantis.
Yeah. Look, it's very obvious that I did a show with DeSantis in Orlando. It was the last show on my book tour in Orlando. So we went to Disney country, and everybody there was psyched to see the guy, excited. We had people in the meet and greet coming up to me after that were Disney employees that could potentially lose their job if he if he gets rid of these tax benefits and everything. And they were coming up to us telling him how appreciative they were. So everyone has moved on this stuff. Nobody wants this. Everyone knows that this woke nonsense in schools and second grade teachers talking to kids about sex or gender identity or call. Imagine you had a kid and you found out that the third grade teacher, male teacher, was talking to your daughter secretly about sex and calling her a boy's name or vice versa, any which way you want to play that. Like, we all know it's wrong, but again, we just need more adults to be like, hey, we're here. We forgot we were supposed to be
With-
A sick sexual fantasy for a teacher to do that to a kid.
twisted.
But
Like, twisted.
with universal mail-in voting, we're talking now. You know what? Let me see if I can pull up a tweet from myself to show you, identify exactly what the problem is. This image that will make all of you. It will make you. It will perturb you if nothing else. Let me see if I can. Here we go. Check out this tweet. Western Maryland, literal MAGA country with flags and signs everywhere, surrounded by Republican districts to the west, but still broke for the Democrats after a week of late counting. Elections today are all about how the votes get cast, and not about how people actually feel. Take a look at this beautiful little handlebar there in Maryland. You see that thing? Now look at this tiny little strip. You mean to tell me that this river right here, that cuts along here, that as soon as you cross that, you immediately go like, I no longer like Donald Trump. Now I'll vote Democrat. I assure you that's not the case. You drive along this, and just like the districts of the north and of the south, it is MAGA country with Trump flags, Trump signs. Now, how did this district, after redistricting, which became an R+ district, go Democrat? It's the way the votes get cast. Mail-in voting, favoring ignorant people who don't care. They were projecting that this would go Republican to Neil Parrott. And then at the last minute, they started counting new ballots. Then slowly the Democrat flipped. And as soon as he did, they called it. nothing is going to matter moving forward because it's exemplified right there. So, we can talk about DeSantis doing everything right. But when it comes to the national level, if we have the Democrats in control of a machine, that it doesn't matter if you know what's going on and vote. They're going to find people who don't know and don't care, and they will outnumber you.
Again, that's why I'm not selling you on the federal government here, and I'm not selling you on the grander project. I'm saying certain states can do it right. And if you care about any of these things, then you have to think about your life very seriously. And every time I tweet that out, you can move, well, it's not easy to move. Yeah, it's not easy to move. Whether you're single, whether you have a family, your grandparents, you got kids, whatever, you have no money, you're rich. Everyone has their own considerations, but it is your life and you have some capacity to do something in your life. And you got to decide what you want to do.
Could they set up state elections so that you could vote online and use like a blockchain to confirm the votes? Could they do that without the federal government saying, no, you're not allowed?
I think that would be worse.
Could a state do
That'd
it?
be way
I
worse.
suppose a state could do it. I don't know that.
You'd log in and you'd log into your account and it would say, thank you for voting. And you go, I didn't vote though. And they would say, it's on the blockchain. You can't change it. And you'd be like, but I didn't vote. I didn't log in.
Yeah, you should be able to confirm it. You got to be able to confirm your own vote. But I feel like voting on paper, giving it to Dominion or another corporation to tally the votes in secret is like sticking your finger in a light socket over, and it's like, oh, I still don't know if they cheated or they didn't cheat.
Paper ballots.
You need to know.
In a box.
You need to verify.
Yeah.
Even that, who's counting it? It's unverifiable. I want a verified election.
What do you mean it's unverifiable?
Someone takes it, says, thank you, we're going to count this honestly. They go to someone else, and they're like, yeah, we counted it honestly.
That's right. You get an independent, a Democrat or Republican, and whichever other party is like Libertarian, and they all watch the count.
I don't want 4 people to decide to verify for me. I want to verify my own vote. I don't need other people there doing it for me.
Well, in Florida, you could verify your vote, that you voted online. You get a receipt. I did at least. And it's like, oh, here's where you voted. Here's who you voted for.
The count should be happening by a computer in public.
I think we should follow what Florida did. I think Florida made a lot of mistakes, especially in 2000, but I think they shaped up. They know they have 99% of the vote counted by midnight. That's impressive. That's something that we should strive to, of course, achieve as well. That's something that I think should be universally put out.
I think it was Stalin that said it doesn't matter who votes, but it's who counts.
No, that was Biden.
Oh, Biden said that?
No.
too?
I think it was Stalin first, and then Biden said it.
No, I know. Yeah, but Biden did say it.
So, and I fully agree with that. If other people are counting your vote for you, then that's a problem. You should be.
Here's the answer. Shows like this are fantastic. Shows like yours and Luke's, but we're preaching to the choir. I think culture is everything. So almost all this, I think basically everything we've invested in at Timcast, from all of you becoming members at timcast.com, has been cultural. It doesn't mean we're gonna be Disney, but we're certainly gonna try and have cultural influence making music. We're working on a video game. We're working on a show. We're working on now movies, because you need to instill your values in cultural things. There needs to be an industry where artists can thrive. There needs to be an opportunity for that guy who works for Disney to say, you know what, I'm not making this woke movie. I'll go work for someone else. Right now, there isn't. Every company is doing the ESG BS. So these people are like, if I speak up, I'll lose my job. Okay, well, we need to build that out. The Daily Wire's got an apparatus for it. We're slowly expanding that. You just need to keep doing it. And a society will grow great when men plant trees whose shade they know they will never sit beneath. So maybe in 50 years, maybe in 100 years, I'll long be dead. And there will be some weird Timcast company that's got libertarian, freedom-loving, liberal values or whatever, and it supplants or displaces the weird woke ESG stuff.
I
agree.
Then
we inspire young people
to build it, they will come. It's something like that. Like, you may as well try to do something on your own to defeat this thing, rather than saying, oh my God, if I only had that politician. There are going to be a couple transformational ones. Obviously, I feel that about DeSantis, but
let's just make it. Let's hire a bunch of young TikTok influencers to just talk about how uncool it is to vote Democrat. They won't vote Republican. They'll just say, voting for Democrats is so lame. You're so lame. I can't believe you would do that.
Did you see the thing the other day where Biden brought the TikTokers into the Oval Office, and then they staged this idiotic Q&A, and one of the questions is, should Elon Musk be looked at by the federal government? And then he fumbled, of course, through the answer. But it's like, that's what I mean about everything's fake. It's all BS. We can see it. We've looked behind the curtain. We've seen the wizard. We know he ain't the all-powerful Oz. But what do we do about it?
Well, one thing we can do is, and I strongly encourage Ron DeSantis to begin immediately, is to start building a dike system outside of Florida and then draining the water to expand the territory of Florida to accommodate more. And then, I've
breathing room.
Living in Miami, I mean, the
Living
water's
space.
only 3 feet deep, like 10 miles outside, or like whatever. I think it's like 11 miles south of Miami. The water is like you could stand there on the rocks.
Yeah.
It's crazy. They have Stiltsville where they built those buildings on stilts where it was like international waters or whatever. I've been there. It's crazy.
So you want to literally like expand the land of Florida.
Yeah.
I don't think we need it yet, but we could start. I think his next thing, like, it is infrastructure projects. Let's build more housing so that the competition that you were talking about earlier about the house prices.
You know, here's a question. If Ron DeSantis, and this is totally hypothetical, if he brought in, like, if he started actually bringing in earth mass and dumping it alongside the coast of Florida, expanding, would the international waters go out with it, or how would that work?
That is a good question. I'm not a maritime lawyer.
Yeah.
It's a very good
I'll
question.
have to talk to my maritime lawyer. He's on retainer.
Yeah, it's like, well, you know, the water extends to like 11 miles to like international waters, but, you know, we added a couple more miles of dirt.
Well, most Florida is swamp anyway. They have pumps in Miami to get the water out.
That's
So,
crazy.
and it gets flooded a lot. So,
Yep.
I mean, it's
But,
already
you know,
that.
we get flooded, but, you know, Hurricane Ian hit basically a Category 5, as he described it, a 100-year biblical storm. I met a guy at the election night, at the DeSantis event at election night. It was a contractor in South Florida, and he was one of the guys working on the Sanibel Causeway. And he said that this thing would have taken 2 years in any other state because of all of the red tape. It took
Yeah, it's
them
amazing.
2 weeks.
Let's talk about solutions in cultural in the cultural issues. So before the show, we mentioned that Ian went on a tirade, screaming and slamming the table about how Dave Rubin was a sellout, and if he ever got the chance to see him in person, he'd tell Dave exactly what he was
These are like
thinking.
razor blades.
That's why I came here today.
Well, it segues.
I'm gonna sit up. I've been kind of
Well, so let me set this up. It's we're dealing with censorship. Elon Musk buying Twitter, and all of a sudden the game has changed.
Yeah.
And a lot of this bodes very, very well for those who care about freedom. It seems like we're starting to make tremendous gains in the culture wars, but with the Daily Wire success, with Elon Musk buying Twitter, they can only hold on for so long with universal mail-in voting. Within this, there's Rumble, which we use Rumble infrastructure for Timcast.com, like the whole website, like literally the website itself, the video player itself. And then we use Parallel Economy for our memberships, which is Dan Bongino with, I believe Rumble's invested in that as well.
I think so.
So we want to build this Parallel Economy. You launched Locals, and then you sold to Rumble.
Yeah.
And then we had a discussion about that. Ian said you were selling out, and I don't remember the entirety of the details, but this is what brings us to, we're here now. Dave's in the room, and Ian is just fuming and seeing red.
I'm throwing the knife in the middle of the
See the
table.
steam coming off my shoulders. I'm sweating. It transitions brilliant because we're talking about culture. We need to build culture. We need to make movies. We need to get people on our side vibrationally. They want people to walk into a room and people to be like, yes, whatever you say. It's a little culty, but you need that to change to change politics. I think you need control of culture, but you also need control of technology, because if you control the technology, no matter how much good movies people are trying to put out there, you can just turn them off. So that kind of brings me to Locals, which you were running at the time. So you started Locals. I had 2 tiers of issues when you sold it, I think, is my problem. And the first one was a bit more personal. The other one's more, I guess, idealistic, is that you said, come to Locals, I'll make sure you never get banned, and then sold the company. I was like, well, now he can't make sure you never get banned because he sold out. And I think I used the phrase sold out to Rumble, whatever. He sold the company.
Yeah.
The other one is that I'm just concerned with corporate conglomeration and proprietary software, because if Chris gets killed, Chris Pavlovsky, if something happens to him, and then someone else just owns everything, all the code. So I think that we need to free the software code.
So I get what you're saying.
That's a separate issue, but
But the one issue that we brought up that I thought was really important was they're doing the SPAC deal, which means they're going to go public.
They're through it now.
Right.
Oh, you mean back then when you were having the discussion? Yeah.
So that means BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard will buy chunks of this company, and then it will be absorbed into that machine.
So let's just do one thing at a time here. So first off, on the why. So in essence, we merged. The companies basically merged. I will tell you 100%. Honestly, I sold all for stock because I believe in it. I did not take any cash in the deal. I still consult for them. That's the extent of what I do with the company. But I am telling you, without question, there has never been a tech company built in any sense that we know anything of that it is free speech is baked into the ethos of this company. When I started Locals, our idea was, we wanted to basically personalize a Patreon for people so that you'd have an app that would give you direct contact with your audience and you could build a business on your own. So we sort of viewed it as like, we're building you a house and what you do in your house is up to you. That's how we dealt with free speech. And we never had any problems about it. Also because you have a paywall, which eliminates 99.9% of all bad behavior. So I felt we had a bunch of good systems in place to clean it up in a really nice way. And I think, and then it became very successful and we got great investors and all of those things. I had a talk with, we had a couple offers to buy the company. I had an offer for massive cash, life-changing cash offer. I had the offer in hand.
Can you say from who?
No, but I had the offer in hand.
Good people or bad people?
Good.
Okay.
Good, actually. And I went to Peter Thiel for advice, purely for advice. And I said, here's the offer. What do you think I should do with this thing? And he said, and I said, Peter, I know this number that I'm showing you is not a lot to you. He's got billions and billions of dollars. But I was like, but it is life-changing for me and my brother-in-law who's the CEO, who's running the tech, changed my sister's life, changed my family's life right there. And Peter said, look, I'm looking at your numbers. You guys are doing some great things here. He said, all you need is distribution. If you can figure out what your distribution model is, you have something amazing. And then I think it was literally like 2 weeks later, we got a call from Chris. Can you guys meet me in Miami for lunch? And we were thinking, okay, we can partner up with them somehow. We'll figure out something. And Chris, I think the water wasn't even poured. I think the woman was coming over with the water. And he was like, let's figure out how to merge and do this thing together. I'm telling you, everyone on the board at Rumble is in this thing for free speech, for every issue we've discussed here. Can BlackRock and other companies figure out ways to buy parts? Of course they can. Of course they can. I'm not going to tell you that they can't. Chris, I don't know what the numbers are, so don't quote me on this exactly. Chris controls something like 74% of the company right now. I think it's something like that. And he is an absolute all-star on all of these issues. So if this type of deal, I don't mean this to you specifically, if this type of deal is not good enough for someone, like here, you know me, right? Like I started in this thing fighting tech censorship, all of the nonsense that New York Times was calling us alt-right and all of these things. I started this company for the right reasons. We found another company that's in it for the right reasons. At some point, it's like you got to do deals to grow and be bigger and mature these things and scale them and all of those things. Are we a perfectly decentralized system? We are not. Are we working on some things, including decentralized payments and subscriptions? We absolutely are.
That's the key.
Yeah.
The issue, for one, all of it
Yeah.
net positive.
Yeah.
All of it net positive across the board. And that's why we use Rumble infrastructure for everything, plus parallel
Also, you
economy.
can't be Google alone. Let me just
Right.
throw one other thing in. Like for me, like I was running a company that was a side job that I was only losing money on, right? Because I'm putting time and resources into it. But I didn't mind that. Like I actually loved building it. But like, okay, so now Dave is somehow just through Locals. I'm going to beat, like, I honestly think we can beat Google. I really believe that.
So here's the trajectory I see. Right now, Rumble is operating off of what I assume is like SPAC money or investor cash.
Well, the SPAC is closed and now it's fully public and traded on NASDAQ and everything. And
So
so they have the money from the pipe and all that. Yeah.
So
there's a lot of cash there.
So the profit revenue generation for Rumble is substantially less than their costs. Their
Yes.
liabilities exceed their assets at this point, I would
Yeah.
imagine. At a certain point, there's going to be an obligation to the shareholders to generate revenue. Like Twitter, what I see happening is they eventually say, how do we attract advertisers? That's how we have to make money on this one, or subscriptions. You're then going to run into one of two problems. Advertisers are going to say, we will not advertise on this content because it offends our delicate ESG sensibilities. You get no money from us. That's less of a problem with Rumble because of Rumble's founding. Whereas Twitter was like, hey,
Yes.
our investors want money. We're going to go for it. We're going to appease. The next issue is the financial services, which is why parallel economy is so important. And I think Rumble sees this.
Well, Dan, who started Parallel Economy, is also a founder of Rumble.
Exactly.
Mean, these things are connected. Like when I tell you that the people involved in these things, when I have been to any meeting with these people, when we were trying to figure out the merger, I never heard anyone say anything related to speech in any way that would have made any of it. It doesn't mean those things can't change. Yeah.
Twitter used to be the free speech wing of the free
Yeah.
speech party until their obligation to their investors. And then the advertisers said, oh yeah, we'll advertise if you ban that guy. With Patreon, they banned Robert Spencer because it was reported that I think MasterCard ordered them to do it.
Yeah.
And the response from the CEO of Patreon was, if we don't ban this one guy, 10,000 people lose their livelihood. And my response was, let the 100 million fans of those 10,000 people send an angry letter to MasterCard when that happens.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I had him on my show and he was lying to my face. It was pretty obvious.
no, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think
Jack Conti.
Yeah.
I
Had him on the
think
show. Yeah.
these are potential pitfalls to going public, getting investor money. Eventually, the bill comes due, and Rumble's going to have an obligation to public shareholders as to how they generate revenue and what that means.
So I would also say, it's totally legit. I think another piece of that I think makes it a little bit easier for somebody like you to understand, or not to understand, but to appreciate, would be that the advertising game really is changing right now. Like the cancel thing, it's not that it's gone, but I think the days of, Ben Shapiro said something about abortion, now the Soothe app is not going to go. It just doesn't work anymore. We are getting to the other side of it. The Chappelle thing that we started with is evidence that we're getting to the other side of it. There also are all sorts of companies now, because of what the woke have done, that companies are now being built across all sorts of industries to make hats and do all the culture stuff you're talking about, whatever it might be, whatever product. So there's a whole new industry being built that will support this sort of thing that did not exist 5 years ago. That's just a reality. But yes, some of this stuff has to be played out. And yes, when you're a public company, you have different obligations than a purely private company. Elon owns this thing now. He's going to have a lot of problems when he realizes how much money it's losing every day.
Can I just ask you one question? Because you said locals had the ethos and the belief system of freedom of speech.
Yeah.
What made you believe that Rumble was going to continue that? Because you made a statement saying, believe me, these guys are standing behind it. What made you believe that these guys were going to follow those same ethos as you had with locals?
So first off, I assume, like all of you guys, but especially you, Tim, when you've done what we do for long enough, like the idea that I would cross my audience is so not say something they don't like, but like do something so fundamentally against what I have put out there and what I believe in. I physically would not be able to do it. So I knew that I couldn't just sell it and be like, all right, and they're going to screw all you guys, and I wouldn't do that. It's against who I am, but that's not the answer you're looking for. Every meeting that we had with Chris, all he kept talking about was the free and open internet. That was it. Every time we would get into more nitty gritty stuff, he would punt some of that to the tech guys, because what he wanted to talk about was saving the internet. This is a guy who's from Toronto, Canada, dealing with if you think about everything that Canadians have dealt with in the last 2 years, COVID, and how could we help the truckers? Like we were doing all sorts of stuff. Every single person, the board now, I know the board, like these people are in it for the right reasons. It is not the perfect force field for some of the reasons that you mentioned, but it's pretty damn good. Rumble also has a lawsuit right now against Google that's going to, that we won discovery on. So Rumble is going to get access basically to the Google algorithm unless Google preemptively, you can Google it.
Isn't it wild that people use it like a verb?
Don't Google it.
I mean, talk about
Brave search it.
DuckDuckGo it.
No, don't even do that.
DuckDuckGo's bad.
They work with George Soros when it comes to
right.
disinformation.
I saw that.
And all that. But was there any kind of guarantees in a contract saying, hey, this is how we run locals. We want you to run locals this way as well. We want to guarantee that you will do it this way. Or was it just, I met them, I liked them, this is what I want?
I can't speak to anything that was in the contract. Genuinely, I don't know, and I don't even know if I would be allowed to say it if I did, but I honestly don't know. I can tell you that my brother-in-law, who is running the company still, he is the CEO of Locals still. He has run this thing with all of the same ethos and passions that we all have. He's running the Locals end of it. Chris is running the Rumble end of it. We're in this fight for the right reasons, and we have the right people for the right reasons. Look who else were the big money backers of this thing. I mean, Thiel put in a lot of money. You may have I have no issues with him. I like him a lot, but like he's on our side in the libertarian sense of
well,
this
let
stuff,
me ask you one quick question before we go to super chats. What's Peter Thiel's net worth? It's like $2 billion.
You could Google that too, I suppose. But yeah, there's a B. There's a B.
I kind of feel like he could snap his fingers and win the culture war, and I wonder why. Technology is not the solution to this.
I think it is. I think it is. I think
it
if you free the
isn't.
software code and create a decentralized network
will
of
not
networks,
inspire young people to stand up for values of
it'll
liberty.
give
what are
people
you
a
saying?
chance to see my movie. Otherwise,
I think I might have a good. I think I might
have.
have a good answer for you. So, is your proposition that he should just say, "Here's $1 billion to the creators of the world and go create"?
Not necessarily. I think
something like that?
I think he should have he should indirectly have a production house that produces movies and shows, comics, cartoons, and video games, because this is what inspires young people and drives
Culture.
culture. The stories that kids hear growing up it influences how they decide to live their lives and what they value.
Yeah.
So I do know that he was all about the uncollege thing. I remember when he did
Yeah.
that with
To be in the Teal Fellowship, you have to
Right.
not have gone to college.
and that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying he's doing nothing, but I'm wondering, is it just that he's got his focus and he's doing things we don't know about, or?
I can't speak for him. I can tell you that at the height of the IDW thing, when that thing was really blowing up with Jordan and Ben and me and Rogan and whoever, there were some discussions around it. It was getting very complex because of egos and different business models and all of those things. I can't speak for him. I honestly, I don't know.
It's video games.
Yeah.
It's you make a video game, a AAA game. I know it's expensive. We're talking tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I wonder if what do you do with billions of dollars? I know that he's invested in winning for values of liberty.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's just not within his frame of mind to see the world this way. You know what I
That's
mean?
interesting. Look, I mean, keep in mind, this was the co-founder of PayPal with Elon.
Right.
So they have strengths that worked well together, and there's something that's putting that Lego piece together there. Elon is doing, I would say, in essence, what you're asking for, right? Because it's a culture play and a tech play. You don't think that's
Totally,
both?
absolutely.
But,
No,
but look what it's doing at the cultural level.
It does have a sort of.
I get it. It's not the direct. You want the direct line to creativity or something. This is more.
It's good.
Got tech in between.
It is good, but you look at TikTok is a big component. So tech is there. TikTok is controlling what these kids can see and what they're being told is cool and what's not cool. But it's also music being played on the streaming platforms, music videos. Kids grow up and they want to be like what is viewed as popular among their peer group. What's being funded is these tech billionaires who have money, for obvious reasons, view the world through a technology lens, and not through a cultural lens. And Democrats have always tried to own celebrities and the arts.
Yeah.
And that's what inspires young people. That's what makes them feel cool.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I can't speak I can't speak for him, so I don't know the answer to that. But But I do sense that it's changing. I mean, look, where did we start? We started with Chappelle, who's pretty damn red-pilled now. So like the thing is happening. The biggest podcaster in the world is Joe Rogan. He's pretty red-pilled. Like said he would vote for DeSantis. Right. So the things are happening in front of our eyes. So the question is, what do you do with all of those pieces?
A few thoughts, simple and overt, is one thing that we're trying to do, and I'm not trying to suggest anyone should do anything we're doing. You know, I view the world a certain way. I'll take action the way I do.
We don't want any competition.
Oh, I love the competition to be fantastic.
Yeah.
What I don't want is to tell someone else to do something and then be wrong.
Right.
Because then they've taken a risk at my behest and screwed them. I don't want that. I'll take the risks on my own, with what we have. And then if we're wrong, I like the decentralization of it. I think funding more cultural commentators who push back on the machine. The conservatives are so stodgy. You know what I mean? You look at TPUSA, and we're friends with a lot of those people, but they're suit wearing, stodgy, and that doesn't resonate with your average city kid or anything like that. They're not going to grow up and be like, man, I wish I could wear a suit too and be stodgy. They want to fit in with their peer group who dress down and don't do those things. My idea would be certainly if I had $1 billion, I'd set aside a couple million to just fund TikTok, YouTube channels, comedians who are challenging the woke cancel culture, who are funny, find talent, create a production house, create a talent agency, make shows, make movies, make content that floods the market. And then you look at an example of a movie, The Craft, which the second version was super woke and insane.
Yeah, first one was good.
They have insane money to fund this ridiculous woke garbage. And the best the right can muster up is the Daily Wire, which is having a difficult time of doing it. The Daily Wire is putting their profits towards this project, trying really, really hard to take the cultural space. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, there are billionaires who have no obligation to do so.
Right.
But if they wanted to win the culture war, it could be like, I can set aside money for lower budget, high quality cultural content to challenge the system without as much risk as, say, the Daily Wire could.
Yeah.
One last quick comment.
We gotta
I wanna
go to
make.
Super Chats.
Thiel and Musk also sold PayPal. Now PayPal wants to fine people for disinformation. That's why people are critical of companies selling companies, because it's like, what could happen now?
Well,
that's the larger question.
For sure. And if you think about it, so now you have Thiel doing basically, we're all agreeing it's basically good work. I get you want him to be more involved. You have Musk doing his thing with Twitter. David Sachs has been one of the most outspoken anti-Ukraine war people, I think, in the country, who was the COO of PayPal. So these guys might be forming again in some way to do something. Who knows? Who knows?
That's what I'm getting. I talked
We gotta
to
go.
guys.
We gotta go super chats.
All right.
If you haven't
I'll
already,
leave it unresolved.
would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, become a member at timcast.com. We're going to have a members only uncensored show coming up at 11 p.m., which should be good fun. Let's read some super chats. Smash that like button. Adam Noel says, Dave, I'm a huge fan. Your appearance on Club Random was great. Get Tim an introduction with Bill. Keep up the good fight. God bless.
I got Bill Maher to say there are conditions to which he would move to Florida and vote for DeSantis. That's pretty solid. But then, of course, the day before the election, he's out there saying you have to vote Democrat to save democracy. So, you know.
I watched some of the your talk with Bill Maher, and were you aggressive with him?
Well, we had to figure it out. The thing is, it was 2 hours. It's the longest one he's ever done. And for the first half hour, you could watch us both trying to is he trying to take me out? Am I trying to take him out? We're kind of dancing back and forth. He was also asking me a lot about sex, which I did not really want to talk about. And it felt kind of gross or whatever. But then about a half hour in, we broke through. And then the one thing that they said to me before the show is that the show itself cannot be mostly politics. That was the way HBO signed off on it, that he has to be mostly doing something else. But I did want to talk to him about politics, obviously, and he wanted to talk to me about certain things. So we had to kind of get there. But wait, what was your question?
Were you aggressive?
I wouldn't say I was aggressive. I think it was as good as it could have possibly been for the first foray into that. And I think I'm going to be on Real Time in January, and we'll hopefully keep doing that thing.
I've been asked by people that are in the circle with him or have known him if I would be interested in having him here or be interested in going on Real Time.
Yeah.
I would not go on Real Time.
I get it.
But it's not overtly political. It's like it's a big investment to fly to LA to do a show that's less informed than our show is, and have to desperately try to cling. I'll just exemplify this. When Prager went on and said there are tampons in the men's washroom, and they all laughed.
Yeah.
It's like, you want me to go into a room full of people who are less informed about the world than I am, and then I have to desperately try to explain that to them in a matter of minutes is just a terrible investment.
Well, that's why the moment when I said to Bill that we talked about earlier, when I said to Bill, you do know that Hillary Clinton called Trump an illegitimate president, and he immediately, no, she didn't. But it was like, Bill, actually, there are tweets.
Here's the video. Let me pull it up for you.
Yeah, exactly. So I fully get that. He told me I'm going to do the first, the protected interview, just him, the one-on-one, so that at least we can get something done. But, it's one of those things. I wanted to do it for so long, and now it's like, I feel like I made my peace with it. I had this great conversation with this guy that I admired. Maybe we went in slightly different places, but we're going to play ball together. And
I'd love to have him here.
Yeah.
I think the show would end up going 5 hours, and because what's going to happen is I love using Hunter Avalon as an example of this. Sorry, Hunter, but he was this conservative who then became liberal. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
The name sounds familiar, but a conservative who became liberal.
That's right. He was an anti-SJW personality. Did some interviews with some liberals, and then all of a sudden became a leftist. And he came on this show, and it was a moment where I mentioned that Joe Biden said, quid pro quo, if you don't fire the prosecutor, you're not getting the $1 billion. And he went, that never happened. And I said, yes, it did. And I pulled the video up right away and we played it.
Yeah.
And then he was like, I didn't know. And I was like, don't come in here and tell me, we sit here all day. Like, I'm certainly not right about everything.
Yeah.
But this is the problem. People like Bill saying Hillary never said that. My response to Bill is just, Bill, have you heard of Google? It's remarkable to me that he spends so much of his time smugly and assuredly talking about politics he never actually looks into. It's like he has his staff write for him and then he just believes it.
To his credit, so I agree with some of that criticism, and I've said some of that publicly. To his credit, what I would say is by doing this podcast, he's trying to break out of that mold.
Agreed.
Bit. I think that's what's happening. I think he realized that maybe there really were some blind spots and some controls around Real Time that maybe he was starting, because the guests suck now. If you look at that guest list every Friday, like that, it's a collection of nobodies, where it used to be all stars on there every week.
That was crazy.
I know that might have been the peak of the show in a weird sense, because it was really like blowing up sort of culturally or whatever, and that was the airlock to mainstream.
Bill,
so
he was like the first victim of cancel culture, I think, in 2001.
He had a show canceled.
9/11.
Politically
9/11.
incorrect, and he was talking about the war. I don't know what exactly he said.
He said that you can say what you want about the hijackers, but you can't say that they were cowards because they did what they want. They did what they intended to do. And then people basically made it seem like he was saying that they were brave or something like that.
And within what, a week, 2 weeks, the show was canceled?
I think it might have been 2 or 3 months, if I'm not mistaken.
And this is before internet video. So it was before he could just spin up a podcast. And so he suffered through it in that. I got to talk to him about this.
Yeah.
Like, what was it like? He's been like living in that system of censorship the entire time.
I remember it very well because I was doing stand-up at the time. I've always been a huge fan of Bill's. I wanted to be on Politically Incorrect. And people thought he was done. People really did think he was done. It was before you could do podcasts and everything. So it wasn't guaranteed that HBO had never done a talk show like that. So
he looks like he could be
20,
my dad.
20 years later.
Yeah, for sure. We got to get him and Luke in the same room.
Let's read some more. We got Daddy Bad says, Timcast routinely compares the fall of Rome to what is happening in USA, but I think the disintegration of the Soviet Union would make a better predictor. I actually, the last thing I said about it was that it may actually be the rise of the Roman Empire, not the fall, the crossing of the Rubicon and the creation of the empire, which resulted in 200 years of prosperity.
The fall of the Roman Republic.
Right.
Although the
rise of
Soviet
empire.
thing is interesting because it's a bunch of oligarchs split the country apart and decided who got what waterway. And that's the big part of the Ukraine-Russia thing now because the oligarchs were like, we're giving the Black Sea to Ukraine. And there's a lot of powerful oligarchs right now. So they would want a piece, you know. I don't know. What do you think?
No idea.
I was trying to work. I had some thing about build a wall, and Berlin Wall came down, and we should build a wall around Florida. I kind of left the room for a minute mentally. I was putting that all together.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Josh says, what are your thoughts on Arizona's HB 2289 and the RNC completely ignoring it? Do you know which one that is, Luke?
Nope.
Neither do I. You want to look it up?
I don't know what that one is either. Wow.
We'll read this while you do. Steven Steele says Oz didn't win because he wasn't MAGA enough. Perhaps there was Kathy Barnett. Trump could have endorsed her, and she's wicked smart. But he went with Oz because I guess he thought TV celebrity would play better.
I mean, the fact that Oz lost to Fetterman it doesn't matter.
How do you live that down?
It doesn't matter, right?
Who'd you lose to? You don't want to know.
Also, that Oprah who put Oz on the map endorsed Fetterman. Like,
That's
Oz
brutal.
has got it. And I met him a few weeks ago. He's a decent dude. Like, he wasn't going to be all the things Republicans want him to be, but he was a nice enough guy.
I got this HB 2289 in Arizona, this bill. The overview says outlines requirements relating to appointed political party challengers for polling places. It's a bit vague, but it's a bill.
Not sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. Balian says, bro, you think AZ is bad? AK hadn't even gotten through the first round of ranked choice BS. You keep saying RC is great, but it's not. It incentivizes low info people who don't do their due diligence and research the candidates. Ranked choice voting. I think there's arguments for and against it. One argument against it is that ranked choice results in the status quo always winning. Because what people want to believe, if we do ranked choice voting, everyone's going to put Bernie Sanders for number one and then Hillary Clinton, and Bernie wins. Mm-hmm. And what really happens is 10% of people put Bernie, 10% of people put Nader, 10% of people put Trump, 10% of people put John Smith, and then all of those fall back on my plan B, which is, again, just going to be the garbage establishment candidate. The pro argument is that many libertarians would say, I'm voting libertarian, but I guess I'll take the Republican if I have no choice. Mm-hmm. And then you'd see Walker win in Georgia.
What happens in ranked choice if there's two candidates, candidate one and candidate two? 50% of the people say I vote for candidate one with two as my second choice. 50% say I vote for candidate two with one as my choice. Who wins?
You mean 50-50?
Yeah.
The same thing that happens with any tie. It usually goes to a runoff, a special election, or... I mean, I don't think we've actually ever seen a direct tie before because it's so statistically anomalous.
I mean, it would probably be literally impossible.
Yeah.
Which is why these 49.7
it would have to be an even number of voters.
Is so weird.
It would have to be an even number of voters, and it would have to fall perfectly split 50-50, and then they'd probably have to do a special. I don't know.
God,
what do
that's
we do?
where this all ends in 2024, isn't it? The perfectly even
yep.
split tie.
That's the movie.
That is the movie.
We got to make a movie.
And then we agree we don't need a federal government, and we could rule our own lives through state and local officials.
This is interesting. Wyatt Kaldenberg says, I voted for Fetterman because he was more Trump-like than that upper-class neocon Dr. Oz elitist. Oz kept the working class away from voting GOP. Interesting. I mean, look, there were Bernie voters who voted for Trump. I would not be surprised if there were Trump voters who preferred Fetterman. These are people who are not staunch conservatives, not diehard Trump supporters. They were populist leftists who said, I guess Trump's better than Hillary. When given an option to vote for Fetterman, even if he's struggling to speak, they want a populist leftist over an elitist celebrity who eats crudité.
God, despite all the crime stuff and all that stuff. All right.
I'm not saying it's everybody.
Yeah. No,
but,
I get
you know,
it. There's got to be somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's grab some more. Nathan Heim says, shout out to Ian. I always appreciate the energy and perspective you have.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you.
Cal Miller says, after the 2022 midterms, I think the chance of civil war has gone down. The left is unified and the right is too divided. I completely disagree. I think it's gone substantially up. Because if there was this talk of this great red wave and Trump supporters thought they had a path forward, and then this is what happened because of universal mail-in voting, I fear that, as John F. Kennedy said, those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. It doesn't mean it's always the majority or people who are right who feel that way, but if people on the right feel disenfranchised because no matter how hard they push, they're not winning, people are going to lose their minds. And I hope that's not the case, because if the Republicans, assuming they do take the House, they're going to get everything they could have wanted out of this. What else could they have gotten? I mean, a little bit more for sure. Winning the Senate could have put Rand Paul in a position to challenge Fauci and all that stuff. But the House can do that. They'll still be able to do it. You don't need Rand Paul for that. And then you can blame the Democrats for everything come 2024. And if you are able to take this time to file the lawsuits to go after the universal mail-in voting and challenge all the stuff, you have a chance for 2024 to actually win.
The Democrats are already to blame for a lot of things: lockdowns, inflation, Ukraine, almost starting a world war with Russia. They have enough to be blamed for already. I don't think adding more to that is going to help.
Yeah. Very, very important question. This is very, very good. Rhiannon Tunel, just thank you so much. Dave, are you going to get chickens? Buck.
I had chickens when I was in LA, and then my 16-year-old dog had cancer, and we were putting a lot of effort into her. Decided to let the chickens go to some friends who were free ranging them. The chickens are doing all right. We had great chicken names. You don't have all chicken names, do you? You named all the chickens?
They all have names. So we named the original batch, and then the viewers of Chicken City have elected names for them.
We had Blanche Featherow. We had Feather Locklear. we had Princess Leia, because she Leia the eggs.
We had Hen Psaki.
Oh, that's good.
And we had Shoe on Egg. And unfortunately, they both passed.
Yeah, well, that's going to happen.
Where were you in LA that you had chickens?
I was in Sherman Oaks in the Valley. It was crazy hot in the backyard. It didn't make a lot of sense. I was mostly just keeping them cool all day long. But anyway, now I would love to get chickens in Florida. I have space to do it. But I also have I have a 3-month-old and a 1-month-old, so it's I'm a little stretched.
That's true.
Dude, how's being a dad?
It's pretty good. It's pretty good so far. There's a lot of pooping and crying and screaming, and now we have kids involved, so it's a lot.
Well, there you go. Now there's even more pooping, crying.
No,
and screaming.
it's been really nice. Yeah.
Choice Music says, to fix the vote 1, remove D and R. 2, list policies claimed or voted for next to candidate names. 3, video recording of every vote required. 4 days to vote with designated PTO by name per day. It's interesting if we record people voting, but not who they voted for, to confirm they did vote, would be interesting. Or at the very least, some record showing that they did. I agree with removing Democrat and Republican from ballots. I don't think they should be on it.
Yeah, I think you can argue it either way. I think to some extent, it's like so many people go in there, even people that are fairly well informed, you still go in not knowing a couple things, right?
Don't vote for someone you don't know.
I would say, generally speaking, you should vote for a Republican you don't know over a Democrat, at least as it stands right now.
But here's what would happen, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You remove DNR, it makes it very difficult for ballot harvesters. They're going to say, vote Democrat. Which one's that?
Right.
And they're going to be like...
Just all the way down the line. Yeah.
So, but what they'll do is they'll say, anyone with a D, check the box. And they do. Now they're going to go and say, vote for the Democrats. Who's that? Okay, you've got Steve Smith. That's the first line. Okay, next you're going to have, that's John Doe. Much more difficult. And I don't know if they're legally allowed to do that. You might be allowed to say, hey, I think you should vote Democrat, but I don't know if they're able to tell you to dictate on the list. You get rid of that D, makes it very difficult. The next thing with it that I think is good is informed voters know who they're voting for. You know Ron DeSantis. You don't care he's a Republican. You're going in and hitting that Ron DeSantis. You know you want Carrie Lake. You vote Carrie Lake. Ignorant voters will struggle. Well-informed voters will succeed. And you're voting for the person, not some ideology. So I think remove DNR from ballots right away.
Yeah, I still think there's probably some problem down ballot where even well-informed people just don't know a slew of things.
But if you're going in and being like, I know DeSantis, I don't know who that guy is, I'm going to vote for him anyway. You deserve the leadership you get. You should be like, I know DeSantis, I know Rubio, I don't know these other guys. I'm not going to vote for them.
But let's put it this way. If you look at what happened in Florida, I mean, he now has a supermajority. It's in part because a whole bunch of people were like, I like DeSantis and I'm voting Republican all the way down.
Yeah.
And it also caused Rubio to win, by 15 points or something.
That's crazy too.
Yeah.
Rubio should not have won by double digits.
I mean, he's pretty standard stuff. I think he might get some mojo out of Florida right now, but it's good that he won, and it's good that he won big.
All right. Quan Yu Chen says, hi, Dave. You need to help Tim get on PBD podcast or get Patrick on Timcast.
Oh, yeah.
Tim Pool and Patrick Bet David are two of the best thinkers
Yeah.
and podcasters of our time. Of course, Dave, you are too.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar. Who's it?
Patrick Bet David, he does Valuetainment. He was I think he was like a massive investor guy, moved his whole company down to Florida. They're in Fort Lauderdale. He's totally great dude. I was on his show this week. Happy to do it. You should do it. He's doing like a sort of, it's kind of this.
We got to figure out how to get
Kind
down
of
to
this,
Florida.
but they wear suits.
Suits.
Yeah.
See, Juiced Cyber New Type says Florida needs to take over the rest of the U.S. Florida imperialism. Has DeSantis considered forming a ground force?
Well, wasn't he going to create? He had his own
right.
police, and people were freaking out.
But perhaps he can then send them to liberate.
Liberate,
then we can just change the country. The entire name just becomes Florida.
Oh, so you are going down those radical paths. I would be for, how about some population trades? You know what I mean? Just like an NBA trade before the deadline. Like, let's just take some sane families out of New York, some sane, decent people out of New York, and let's trade them for whatever's going on in Orlando with the purple-haired weirdos.
I disagree. Let Florida man be Florida man.
We got an important one here. James Moaning says, first, Genocide is a great song. Really do appreciate it. Says, can't wait for more. Second, Iowa swept red. Great state. Third, keep an eye on the railroads. The vote's extended to 12-4, and it doesn't look good. If they strike, it will be bad for all. Not just the railroad strikes, but we're hearing that travel strikes may happen too, which can be very, very bad for Christmas and New Year's. So we know that, I think, pilots went on strike recently. Is that what happened, Luke?
Well, there was a conversation after a major pilots union meeting, and pilots coming out saying there's a big probability that there might be boycotts this coming season. So look out for that.
That's just not what we need right now for the holiday season after all this craziness.
Yeah,
not what we need.
But it's okay for the ultra wealthy who will just fly private without masks or restrictions, while the poor people can barely afford. Mm-hmm. All right. Juiced also says that Trump has a big obstacle now that Dems won't even need to debate anymore. I mean, Biden barely wanted to debate in the first place, and now they're not debating. So maybe Trump's boisterous attitude, I think they learned. I think they saw how Trump owned the debate.
Wouldn't that be something if the Democrats just pull a Katie Hobbs
Yep.
going forward? Nope, we're just not doing it. We're just not, if it's Trump, he's Hitler.
And exactly. They'll say, I will not give him the promotion he's requesting. We won't do it.
Oh, man. And then that takes away what you're saying basically is Trump's secret thing, right? The one thing
His
that
power.
you were giving him over DeSantis.
Well,
was
and
that. Yeah.
and DeSantis's where he's probably weakest is, well, I don't know how he would fare in debate, but he doesn't come off as the same kind of boisterous personality as Trump. But if they don't debate him, then it helps DeSantis.
Yeah.
He's got policy behind his back. He doesn't need to prove himself on a stage with somebody.
I remember Trump during the debates in 2016 was spectacular. 2020, I don't really remember him doing that well with Biden, unless I'm
No,
wrong.
that's what I was saying earlier. He seems to be better in the fray, right? When there's a scrum and there's a bunch of people. And
No,
he's
he did
firing
well with
at
Hillary.
everybody.
When it was him and Hillary one-on-one, he was doing really good with that go to jail line.
That wasn't really good, though. Saying that you're going to throw your political opponent in jail is not good.
No, well, it worked for the base, though. I mean,
Yeah,
it helped get him elected for sure.
It got
for
a
sure.
rouse.
It was
out of people.
effective. But so were
it
the
was
Nazis.
effective.
Okay, but I don't understand your point.
Well, they're not the Nazis. Either.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he was also.
All right.
I think he was a little off his game in 2020 because COVID was so freaking crazy that, and he had
Yeah.
just recovered from COVID in one of the debates. Like he just wasn't fully himself.
Yeah.
Killer Donut says, as a West Virginian that moved to Florida, I will gladly take the humidity over snowmageddon plus tons of activities. You could be like the snowbirds, come down in the winter, leave in the summer.
Thank you.
Winter doesn't last that long. It doesn't actually snow that much out here. It snowed, I think, last year like twice. And snowboarding's fun. I got to tell you, we get just the right amount of winter. You rent a little cabin, a couple hours north in maybe the mountains somewhere in Pennsylvania. And you get a cabin with big glass windows right in front. and you sit back with the fire going and a hot cocoa and slippers on, and you just watching the snow come down at night. That's just
crying,
that's
thinking about Florida.
Yeah, you know,
Absolutely.
yeah, exactly. You know what we do?
Thinking about swimming in the hot ocean and the
man.
sun and getting some vitamin D,
We
which is
have
really
summer
good
here.
and important
See,
for your body.
We have all the seasons here, and so you get the hot, you go on the river. You get the cold, you go snowboarding. You get springtime, you go skating. Yeah, Florida's great for to visit in the winter. Sometime you want to get a taste of that good summer vibes, and then you come back and you enjoy that you got snow.
Tim, I know you need to believe this, so I'm going to let you have it.
Look, I'm from Chicago. What does Chicago technically have? 2 seasons. It has freezing cold and super hot.
And yeah.
So I like the mix. I like San Diego. It's always
Yeah.
69 degrees, but it gets a little foggy in the mornings. But LA is great, man. LA weather really
But
is.
it rains fire every few months. We get
Yeah,
the
that's
crazy fires. And
The problem with LA is not the weather; it's the people.
and it's,
Communism.
Yeah.
Right.
Smog, well, the brake dust, I guess.
yeah, and the air quality blows there. It's really bad.
All right. Agamemnon's Jim Bag says, Dave, neat guy, but I very much disagree. Remove R&D from ballots. You can literally fire up the internet machine and figure out the candidates you want while you are in line. If you're not willing to do that, you probably shouldn't be voting.
Yeah, I don't feel particularly strong about it either way. I think your argument before was sound, and I think there's reasons to when it's working that you just getting some extra votes for the right people.
Democrats would be panicking if DNR were removed from the ballot.
Yep.
Republicans, people are wondering, how is it that some people voted for this Republican but not that Republican in Arizona, and it's like because Republican voters vote based on their candidate by doing research, and so they might sometimes actually prefer to switch parties.
This can be a problem sometimes.
Yep, and Democrats are just going to be like Democrat, 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 Democrat. I say you take that. Matt Anthony says Katie Hobbs just won AZ. Sucks. We will see, but yeah, probably, which was surprising. And I know the left is because they operate based on a lack of context. I did a couple segments saying the trend suggests Carrie Lake will win. And that's actually what the forecasters were predicting and what the trends were predicting. The trends were showing that the late ballots that were coming in were actually beginning to favor Carrie Lake increasingly. Mm-hmm. And AZ Central reported that Carrie Lake had more than enough votes left to actually win in the end, like we saw in 2020 with the late ballots coming in. They were they were late drop-off absentee. However, they said it's possible that she still does lose. No one really wants to say they think this will follow 2020 trends. So ultimately, it sounds like it didn't, and Carrie Lake was not able to muster up enough votes.
Well, the question is, what will Carrie do? We will
see. My friends, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, become a member at timcast.com because we're going to have that members-only exclusive uncensored show coming up in just a little bit. You don't want to miss it. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL on Instagram and everywhere else. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Do it. Dave, do you want to shout anything out?
I started a tech company.
Hey.
And you can find out what we're doing over at rubinreport.locals.com.
Right on.
Thanks for coming on. My website is youtube.com/wearechange. I've been screaming about the FTX scandal the last few days.
Yeah, we didn't get to
the
that.
World Economic Forum, the Clintons, Tony Blair, they're all involved here. The story is crazy. I've made a number of videos about it.
We'll talk about it in the members only.
And then on lukeuncensored.com, I even talked about an Epstein FTX possible link. You want to see that? lukeuncensored.com. See you there.
Yeah, the FTX thing's one of the greatest fiscal scandals of our generation. Honestly, maybe in my lifetime, one of the great. And it's crypto. It's new. People don't know what to do about it. The government's pulling their hair out. They were in the Bahamas. That's where it's all going down. Not even on American soil, but there's a lot of American money in there. I'm interested to talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Florida man, I love you, brother.
See? You see? We worked it out. Yeah. That's what it's all
It's like the founding fathers, man. They didn't always agree, but they worked together anyway.
That's right.
yeah.
Dave is just like Thomas Jefferson.
Thank you. Thank you.
Much like one of the designers of
Having sex with my slaves.
Don't be Benjamin Franklin.
Jeez, dude.
Yeah, I'd love to continue the
Good night,
conversation
everybody.
too. I think Rumble's in a position to decentralize the internet and make free software like the law of the land. I'm really excited. Chris is also, I've had this
Chris
conversation
is a
with
good
him.
dude. We're working on a lot of stuff.
Cool young guy.
Let's get it.
I love Chris. All right, see you guys.
You can find me everywhere at Kellen PDL. Dave, it was great to meet you. Love the conversation.
Right on. Appreciate it.
We will see you all over at timcast.com. Head over there, click the join us button, and the members only will be live in about an hour. Thanks for hanging out.
Sex with Sling.